Madame le Connétable de Saint-Laurent.
Présente.
Monsieur le Connétable de Saint-Brelade.
Présent.
Monsieur le Connétable de la Trinité.
Présent.
Monsieur le Connétable de Saint-Pierre.
Présent.
Madame le Connétable de Saint-Martin.
Présente.
Monsieur le Connétable de Saint-Jean.
Présent.
Monsieur le Connétable de Saint-Clément.
Présent.
Monsieur le Connétable de Grouville.
Présent.
Monsieur le Connétable de Saint-Ouen.
Présent.
Monsieur le Connétable de Sainte-Marie.
Présent.
Monsieur le Connétable de Saint-Sauveur.
Présent.
Monsieur le Deputy Southern. Madame le Deputy Larry.
Présente.
Monsieur le Deputy Thadier.
Présent.
Monsieur le Deputy Luce.
Présent.
Madame le Deputy Doublé.
Présente.
Monsieur le Deputy Murrell.
Présent.
Madame le Deputy Lehegara. Monsieur le Deputy Ayer. Monsieur le Deputy Ward.
Présent.
Madame le Deputy Alves.
Présente.
Madame le Deputy Gardner. Monsieur le Deputy Gorst.
Présent.
Monsieur le Deputy Farnham.
Présent.
Madame le Deputy Moore.
Présente.
Monsieur le Deputy Mesick.
Présent.
Monsieur le Deputy Joseph. Monsieur le Deputy Balash.
Présent.
Monsieur le Deputy Coles.
Présent.
Madame le Deputy Poré. Monsieur le Deputy Ward.
Présent.
Madame le Deputy Miles.
Présente.
Madame le Deputy Scott.
Présente.
Monsieur le Deputy Renouf.
Présent.
Madame le Deputy Curtis. Madame le Deputy Feltham.
Présente.
Madame le Deputy Binet. Madame le Deputy Jeune.
Présente.
Madame le Deputy Miller.
Présente.
Madame le Deputy Howell. Monsieur le Deputy Binet. Monsieur le Deputy Ferry.
Présent.
Madame le Deputy Kovac.
Présente.
Monsieur le Deputy Curtis.
Présent.
Madame le Deputy Ward.
Présente.
Madame le Deputy Wilson.
Présente.
Madame le Deputy Stevenson.
Présente.
Monsieur le Deputy Andrews.
Présent.
Monsieur le Doyen.
Notre aide soit au nom de Dieu qui a fait les cieux et la terre. Amen. Seigneur Dieu, Père éternel et tout-puissant, qui a établi le gouvernement et les puissances de la terre pour le règlement et pour la conduite du peuple, et qui nous a commandé d'avoir toujours pour but la gloire de ton saint nom. Nous te prions qu'il te plaise de donner à cette assemblée le don de conseil et de prudence, d'unir les cœurs et les affections de tous ceux qui la composent, de les conduire tellement toi-même par ton Saint-Esprit que toute leur délibération est accompagnée de ta bénédiction. Réussisse au bien-être et au soulagement du peuple, qu'il te plut de commettre à leurs soins. Car nous t'en prions au nom et par le mérite de ton Fils bien-aimé Jésus-Christ, notre Seigneur, qui nous a enseigné de t'invoquer en disant: Notre Père, qui es aux cieux, ton nom soit sanctifié, ton règne vienne, ta volonté soit faite sur la terre comme au ciel. Donne-nous aujourd'hui notre pain quotidien, et nous pardonne nos offenses, comme nous pardonnons à ceux qui nous ont offensés. Et ne nous induis point en tentation, mais délivre-nous du mal. Car à toi est le règne, la puissance et la gloire, au siècle des siècles. Amen.
Madame le Deputy Gardner.
Présente.
Monsieur le Deputy Joseph.
Présent.
Madame le Deputy Poré.
I think Deputy Porritt did try to join the meeting earlier on.
So I'm pretty sure I heard her say present
I
first
think
time
she
round, but
did.
It was just slightly
There was
delayed.
a short delay, so I think we'll treat her as being present.
Madame le Deputy Howell.
Présente.
Les États sont constitués. Now move to the consolidated order paper. There are a number of subordinate enactments under B and documents presented or laid under C. The following propositions have been lodged under D. P38, fully funding education or training for all 16 to 18-year-olds. Amendment lodged on the 8th of July by Deputy Gardner. And P43, new healthcare facilities programme, lodged on the 27th of June by the Hospital Review Panel. A number of propositions have been withdrawn. In accordance with Standing Order 34, the proposer of the following propositions lodged au greffe has informed the greffier that they are to be withdrawn. Firstly, P13, pay gap reporting, lodged on the 8th of March by Deputy Dublé, and P24, on draft unlawful public entertainments Jersey regulations amendment, presented on the 28th of May by the Economic and International Affairs Scrutiny Panel. There are no matters under F, G, or H. A number of written questions have been asked and answers replied. We now come on to oral questions with notice. I invite Deputy War to put the first question to the Minister for Infrastructure. Deputy War.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister explain why the public car park at Cyril Amarcon Court remains closed despite the housing development being completed, and will he state when the public car park will be opened?
Minister.
Thank you, sir, and I thank the Deputy for his question. Sir, the Cyril Amarcon Court development has been undertaken by Andium, and included within its design was the construction of a 136 public space car park to be provided to Jersey car parks under a lease agreement. So members will be aware the development has been subject to delays emanating from the COVID pandemic and then the contractor going out of business, all of which have been reported in the media. The delay to the car park construction programme has been a direct result of these unfortunate events. Currently, Andium's new contractor is undertaking snagging works to bring the car park to the required standards to allow Jersey car parks to take occupancy and commence the lease. The developer's latest programme for these works show us taking occupancy and the final commissioning during August, at which point Charles Street car park will be open to the public. Thank you, sir.
Supplementary.
Yep. Thank you, sir, and I thank the Minister for his answer. When was the Minister first made aware of the delay in the reopening of the public car park, and did he make any effort to communicate this with the business community of St Helier, given the economic impact the lack of parking in town is having on traders, and if not, why not?
Minister.
Sir, I'm not sure of the date that I was made aware that there was a problem, sir, but we don't actually have a lease starting until we take that lease from the current contractor, sir. So it's not actually in our hands at the moment. So I'm delighted to say in terms of parking that the Hopper bus has seen the usage double since we started to promote the Hopper bus, and encourage the Deputy and other deputies in St Helier to continue to promote the Hopper bus so that more and more people can get in and around town, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Deputy Tullier.
Thanks, sir. So I think it arises from the supplementaries, but there are lots of areas in town which are not accessible by car, and presumably people with mobility issues still manage to get around. Would the Minister look holistically about arrangements for accessibility in town, and where car parking is either not available at all, and roads are not available to cars, to make sure there's infrastructure so that mobility can be assured in all parts of St Helier?
Thank you, sir. We are working, sir, with the representative of the Blue Badge holder, sir, to see if we can improve parking for those community. I'm answering a question about that later, sir. So I have to recommend Shop Mobility, which is based at Sand Street Car Park, which does enable lots of people to get in and around the precincts, in and around town, sir, using their services. Thank you.
Deputy Gardner.
Thank you, sir. And my supplementary also is coming from the Minister's response to the supplementary. We all welcome the Hopper Bus service that has been mentioned by the Minister. There is a difficulty to find online very quickly the route of the Hopper Bus. Would the Minister ensure that it has been published widely, because the elderly people asked me and I couldn't find it immediately?
Minister.
So I'm more than happy to do that, sir, and I'm also going to encourage both Liberty Bus and my department, sir, to promote the Hopper Bus some more. Thank you.
Final supplementary. Deputy
No,
Ward.
thank you, sir.
Question 2, Deputy Tadier will put to the Minister for Home Justice and Home Affairs. Deputy Tadier.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister provide an update on the Audemars explosion investigation and state when the public will be informed of the likely cause of the incident?
Minister.
Thank you, sir, and I thank the Deputy for the question. As the Deputy will appreciate, the ongoing investigation is complex, and while a working hypothesis was established in the immediate aftermath of the explosion, a definitive understanding of the cause requires detailed expert opinion and evidence. The final expert's report has been received and has informed the investigation strategy. The 3 suspects continue to be released on conditional bail. A charge file is well advanced and will be submitted to the Law Officers Department in due course. The States of Jersey Police remain in close contact with the Law Officers Department, and the file will go to them in due course. They remain in close contact with the families and will ensure that updates are made on a regular occasion. And I would suggest that if they don't hear anything from those dedicated family liaison officers, that actually they make inquiries with them, because it is very important that they keep them updated. As this investigation and a file will be submitted to the Law Officers Department for consideration of charge, the public will not be informed of the cause at this stage.
Supplementary.
Thank you, sir. I hope the Minister appreciates that I asked this question with not lightly, and she knows that I've also made inquiries directly with her, but I have had communication from a member of the public whose family was directly affected, and he talks of the need for closure in this issue, not just for those directly affected, but I think because it's also a matter of public interest that many people in the island would like to know what's going on and if indeed the houses that they live in are safe. So does the Minister accept that actually this is a matter of public interest that needs to be, and the information needs to be brought forward as soon as possible?
Minister.
Yes, of course, sir, I do appreciate this. However, this is an inquiry in partnership with Health and the Safety Inspectorate. The Police Inquiry Team and Major Incident Room have been busy undertaking 1,991 actions, which involve pursuing lines of inquiry to process 6,975 documents, 1,850 exhibits, and 1,118 statements to date. This is a very serious incident, and let's make no bones about that. It's probably the most serious thing that's happened in Jersey for a significant period of time. And there are 10 victims of this, to which, obviously, from my perspective, I send my condolences to those family. And I fully appreciate that people want closure. But what I am minded of, sir, is that it is appropriate when we have something of this such serious nature that the investigation teams in all of the areas that are looking at this need the time and space to be able to do that. And I fully appreciate that that sometimes can be a challenge for a member of the family, because it is difficult to wait, and it has been 18 months. So I fully appreciate that. But it is also very important that this file is put together in a professional manner, and that no stone is left unturned, so that whatever the outcome is that the best that we can possibly do. Also, of course, once the file has completed, it will go to the Law Officers Department. And that means also they've got significant work to do to be able to look at to see where this goes next.
Deputy Ayer.
Thank you, sir. Can the Minister inform the Assembly of what the total cost of the investigation into the Houtemont explosion, Operation Spire, actually cost? Thank you, sir.
So I will need to just bear with me for a minute or two, because I just need to check in my paperwork. I have somewhere got the detail of. In fact, just bear with me for a second, sir. Where's it gone? My apologies, sir. I actually can't find the actual policing plan at this particular time, and I know that the detail is fully published in that particular policing plan, which was recent, or policing annual report, I should say, in recent days. And I must apologise to the Deputy, because actually I actually can't find that particular document at the moment, sir, and I don't want to delay the Assembly any further.
Supplementary?
Yes, sir, thank you, and thank you, Minister, for trying to obtain that information. But as I understand it, the information that the Minister is looking for is from the police investigation, and I wondered if she might be able to advise the Assembly how much the total cost of the whole operation was, and whether she might be able to supply that information to members. Thank you.
Minister?
Thank you, sir. Yeah, I found the annual report, and that detail will only be up until the end of 2023. So I will actually do that, sir, and I apologise to the Deputy for not having that information at hand.
Thank you. Deputy Joseph.
Thank you, sir. May I start by thanking my constituents and members for their kindness and understanding during my period of absence, and I'm pleased to be here and to ask a question in person. So whilst I completely understand the seriousness of the matters which the Minister addresses, I wonder whether she would be kind enough to give the Assembly and the public the assurance that she is apprised and other ministers are apprised of any issues that are emerging that ensure that continued safety, whilst the court process must take its natural course. There are issues of a wider public interest, and that is the public safety. And I wondered whether the Minister is seized upon those issues and is able to advise, at least in confidence, that ministers are aware of these issues and are dealing with them in the most speedy and efficacious way. Thank you, sir.
Minister.
Yes, I thank the Deputy for that question, and of course that is in the forefront of our minds. And of course, my colleague and I at Infrastructure meet on a regular basis with the Emergency and Resilience Group. So that is of our mind, and we fully accept and understand that there is a concern from the public in relation to this incident because of the nature and the potential cause of that particular major incident. What I can say, as in relation to what my previous colleague had asked me, was that the actual cost of OpSpire in 2023 was £2,707,745. But I will get the Assembly the actual up-to-date cost.
Supplementary.
Thank you, sir. I'm grateful for the Minister's reply. Would she please advise the Assembly whether or not she and other ministers have received a risk assessment, albeit in confidence, that actually addresses some of the potential issues that this tragic incident is potentially the cause of? Have they received a risk assessment? It would be normal that that would be done. Yes or no would be sufficient. I'm grateful.
Minister.
As I said, I meet regularly with the resilience, emergency and risk assessments have been done in relation to this, but obviously that is an ongoing matter.
Final supplementary.
Yes, sir. I hope the Minister agrees with me, and I think most people, that the cost at the moment isn't the most important matter here in this, but there is information that could be put in the public domain. Does the Minister agree with that? Would she consider releasing information which would not be prejudicial to the ongoing investigation, about the cause and the progress made to date, and also the content of that report about the cause of the explosion, so that there can be some progress made towards closure, not just for the families, but also for the wider public in this matter.
Sir, at this stage, I would not want information to be put into the public domain that could have any impact at all on any process that will happen thereafter. I will speak to the investigating team and will ask that question. But as far as I'm concerned, sir, the most important thing at this time is that that investigation can be continued unimpeded, and that whatever the result is that it's important that there is nothing that has come out prior to anything that may happen following the review of the file and the decisions that are made. So I would want that to be totally sure that that wouldn't impede it in any way, shape or form, because for me that is the priority.
Thank you, Minister. Question 3, Deputy Jeune will put to the Minister for Justice and Home Affairs. Deputy Jeune.
Thank you, sir. Further to the response to written question 136 of 2024, will the Minister advise what progress, if any, has been made regarding the drafting of hate crime legislation and the estimated timeline for lodging?
Minister.
The offences in our draft, as members will be aware, the hate crime legislation has been a component part of the Prejudice and Public Order Law, which dealt with the issues of public order as well as crimes motivated by prejudice. The offences in our draft law were mostly based on those in force in England and Wales, which sit in the Public Order Act 1986. Since the initial development of the law, other jurisdictions have introduced comparable legislation which provides more effective and future-proofed ways of describing hate crime offences. In light of these developments, officers of the Cabinet Office are working on the Law Officers Department to redevelop the offences in the hate crime law into an effective and modern form. This work is ongoing, and I'm still committed to finalising this legislation within this term of office. However, there are still significant questions to be answered around the treatment of sex and gender, as well as how we deal with the issue of stirring up hatred. I intend to develop a plan for consultation in due course and to complete the legislation as soon as practicably possible.
Supplementary.
Yes, so thank you. Could the Minister advise what is the current state of hate crime in Jersey, and have there been any notable trends or changes in recent years?
Minister.
My apologies, sir. Can the Deputy repeat the question, please?
I said, could the Minister advise what the current state of hate crime is in Jersey, seeing as there's not legislation at the moment, and have there been any notable trends or changes in recent years?
Well, the question is about drafting hate crime legislation, Deputy. It's important that supplementaries are focused on the question. I'm not sure the Minister can answer this. Can you answer this, Minister?
No, sir, I can't.
Okay, then please can I have another follow-up question? In that sense, because there is yet to be legislation specifically focused on hate crime, what are the policies and strategies that are currently in place to help prevent hate crime and to support victims of Jersey currently?
Of course, legislation already within the states of Jersey Police already have legislation which will cover hate crime offences. Of course, what we need to do is actually make specific legislation which can deal with these offences, as opposed to using other legislation to actually deal with them. So that is why the legislation is being brought forward. And there are lots of parts of it that need to actually be clarified. And of course, as we said, in relation to other parts of the country, the law has had its challenges, so we need to make sure that whatever we bring forward for Jersey is actually right and suitable for our own selves.
Deputy Doublé.
Thank you, sir. Is the Minister aware of recent attacks on members of the LGBTQ+ community? Is she concerned about this, and will she ensure that they're protected under this new legislation?
I thank the Deputy for the question, and it's not something that was actually brought to my attention. I have actually met with the new CEO of the LGBTQ community, and I would anticipate that that will be a regular meeting to keep updated with. At this stage, as I said, I wasn't aware of that, but I would ensure and I would be totally committed that the States of Jersey will actually investigate these offences to the best of their ability to ensure that they are treated and with dignity, and also that they are investigated properly and those offenders brought to court.
Supplementary, Deputy.
Yes, thank you, sir. Please could the Minister confirm which characteristics will be protected under the proposed new legislation?
Minister.
As I said, we are going to do a consultation and to establish what actual characteristics the consultation process will bring. Mostly because, as I said, there's been challenges in other jurisdictions. One would want a legislation that was going to incorporate everything, but we obviously need to ensure that what we do include is actually what the people that we consult think is appropriate. And obviously the people that we will be consulting are the peoples like the LGBTQ community, alongside other groups who have an interest in this subject.
Deputy Gardner.
Thank you, sir. Minister mentioned several groups that needs to be included in the future hate crime legislation. Would the Minister indicate what policies and procedures do we have in place currently to address hate speech, including hate speech towards the public figures, including states members?
Minister.
There are still offences under the public order law that relate to people's behaviour and how they are in the public domain. There's also legislation, obviously, in relation to the telecoms law, which will deal with it in certain other aspects. But though all of that legislation is actually more, isn't as, how can I put it, isn't as robust as having a legislation which will be actually for hate crime. So that is why it is essential that we actually do this legislation. And as I said, it will be done as expeditiously as possible. It is my intention within the next 3 or 4 months, probably in the autumn, to actually go out to consultation. And as I said, we will be looking to groups for that to occur.
Supplementary. Deputy Balash.
So will the Minister confirm that in the drafting of this new legislation, proper regard will be had to freedom of speech and the right of people to say things which may be upsetting to other people?
Thank you, sir, and I thank the Deputy for the question. Of course, this is why we need to consult, and this is why we need to actually ensure that whatever legislation we get in relation to hate crime in Jersey is suitable for our own jurisdiction. What we don't want is what has happened in other parts of the country, whereby it's actually created more of an issue and people have felt isolated, and then people are actually complaining about them not feeling supported themselves. It is, let's be honest, this is a very difficult type of legislation because different people in the community have different views on what should or shouldn't be within this legislation. And that is why consultation is imperative, because we do not want to be in a position that we bring in legislation like some of the other places have done, and then that causes more conflicts than it actually resolves.
Thanks, sir. Deputy Balash pipped me to the post, but I think I can continue in the vein. What importance does the Minister place politically on the right to offend, and also Article 10 of the European Court of Human Rights Convention, on the ability for people to express themselves freely and to hold opinions and to impart them also in this regard?
Minister.
So I think it's important that people are allowed to speak, but it's also important that their speech is not offensive and doesn't cause offence to others. So I think there is a balance. There is definitely a balance about being allowed to speak and say what you want to say, but also about the fact that what you're saying may offend others. and your actions may also cause public order offences. So I do think that, and I fully accept that under the human rights, we all have rights to do certain things, but those rights need to be considered alongside offences and also how other members of the public will feel by what we make and say in public.
Supplementary, sir?
Yes.
I'm slightly worried. We'll have to listen back on the recording and maybe look at Hansard, but I'm concerned that one doesn't have the right to offend by what the Minister said. Does she agree that offence, it's up to the listener to decide whether they take offence at something, and they don't have to take offence necessarily? Clearly there are degrees. I hope the Minister would accept that of egregiousness, but does the Minister accept that it's a fundamental right to be able to offend, and that's something that we should defend first and foremost?
Minister.
Yes, I appreciate what the Deputy is saying, but I do also think that we have got to be in a position where you're allowed to offend, but actually you also have to be careful about what you're saying and whether you're offending somebody or you're actually targeting, and it then becomes hate crime. So I do actually think that I fully accept what you're saying, Deputy, but I do actually feel, sir, sorry, that should have gone through the chair. I do fully appreciate, sir, what the Deputy is saying, but I also feel that you have to be minded of what you're saying publicly. Yes, you can say what you want in public, but you have to also be minded of whether your words and your actions are actually committing offences.
Deputy Joseph.
So I wonder whether the Minister would inform the Assembly whether or not she is considering including misogyny in the legislation traits and typologies that she is considering.
Minister.
I thank the Deputy for the question, and this subject has rightly come up before, and it will be discussed in the round of the consultation process, because as I said, we need to ensure that whatever we put into our legislation is going to be workable for our community as a whole. So yes, that has been considered, it will be considered, as will other elements be considered, but we need to ensure that whatever we put in the legislation is workable and acceptable to the community.
Final supplementary, Deputy Joan.
Yes, sir. Thank the Minister for her responses around this important subject. And I'd maybe like to ask the Minister, had she envisaged this consultation, a new set of consultation from the beginning, or is this a new development? Because the hate crime legislation, I feel, was quite advanced before the beginning of this year, and there is a lot of information around what is needed in Jersey. So I was wondering whether the consultation and delaying it further to do a consultation is really why the Minister decided that this was important to do. Thank you.
So I thank the Deputy for the final supplementary. In actual fact, where the Deputy says that the legislation was sort of on track, there's been a lot of different parts and elements to this, and various discussions, and the consultation was, I believe, some time ago or not fully completed. So therefore, it's appropriate that consultation is made, because we do not want to have the same situation, as I said, that other jurisdictions have. So we need to ensure that when the legislation comes through, that it is actually going to come through. It's going to be a good piece of legislation that can work well for everybody, and it protects those people that it needs to protect.
Sir, would the Deputy give way for a point of clarification?
No, it's not your question, Deputy Moore. I don't think that's appropriate. Thank you. Thank you, Minister. Deputy Wilson, question 5 to be put to the Minister for Health and Social Security. Deputy Wilson.
Thank you, sir. In respect of the Royal College of Radiologists' review of the Jersey Hospital radiology services, will the Minister explain why he has not yet published the full report and recommendations which were provided to his department in January 2024, and advise when he expects them to be published?
Minister.
My
like to thank the Deputy for the question. Sir, having been Health Minister in the last government, the Deputy will be aware that the Health Ministerial portfolio is both broad and complex, and there's a great deal of information to take on board when first coming to office. With this in mind, I would mention that I was only actually made aware of the review of the radiology services sometime in March, which is 2 months, roughly 2 months after coming into office. And at that time, sir, I must confess I wasn't particularly focused on the need to select a specific date for its publication. In the midst of a great deal else going on at the time, I'm afraid that publication simply wasn't top of my agenda. However, I can now confirm that it will be published this coming Thursday, the 18th of July. I can only apologise for the delay, sir, and I'd like to assure the Deputy and members that I had no intention of withholding information for any specific purpose. Furthermore, I wish to assure members that I'm now acutely aware of the need for a carefully considered approach to such matters, and I'm currently working on the development of a short specific protocol to ensure that I and future health ministers, if they choose to adopt it, have a recognised method and timeline to deal with the publication of reports, reviews and the release of other important information in all areas of healthcare. So I hope that answers the Deputy's question. Thank you.
Supplementary?
Thank you, sir. I know the importance of releasing reports like this immediately and have done so previously. So the thing that I want to ask the Deputy is that women across the island have been misdiagnosed as a result of errors. Can he tell us when the consultant at the centre of this incident was identified as not being fit for practice, how it came to light, who knew about it, and how long they'd known about it before the incident came to the attention of the medical director?
Minister.
There's a whole range of detailed questions there, sir. It might have been more appropriate had the question put those questions to me earlier. I simply can't answer all of those details off the top of my head, sir. And I also think that the Deputy here is not referring to the radiology report. I think she'd be referring to the Royal College of the British Society of Breast Radiologists report, and I stand to be corrected.
Thank you. Deputy Tellier.
Does the Minister think it would be helpful perhaps to have a presumption of publication within a certain period of time for such reports? So, for example, there could be a government-wide policy that when a report comes out, it would be automatically published, say, within 6 weeks, unless there's a good reason not to publish it, and that the Minister may get an officer saying, Minister, this is about to be published in 3 weeks' time, unless you've got a good reason for not doing that. Would that be something the Minister would consider?
Minister.
Yes, I would indeed. I think I alluded to that fact by suggesting that I'm going to have a sort of self-imposed protocol so that when something like this occurs, I have a process which I can go through very quickly to identify the areas. And in health, this relates to patient safety and well-being, patient confidentiality, health worker considerations, including possible identification issues. So those are all the things that I'd like to, when this comes up again, I'll be looking at those straight away and putting an appropriate timeline in place so that whatever information is appropriate to be released can be released at the earliest opportunity. So I can only apologise again for the oversight on my part. This wasn't handled as well as I would normally have done had I been in office for longer. Thank you.
Deputy Breniff.
Thank you, sir. Given that one of the key issues raised in the Health Scrutiny Panel hearings last week was the refusal by a number of consultants to accept clinical guidelines and Royal College reports, can you reassure us that the consultants in this case are accepting the findings of the Royal College report?
Sir, as the Deputy well knows, there are a number of complications in this area. There are problems internally in the hospital. They're complicated. They relate to employment matters. So I'm not free to comment completely openly, but what I can assure members is they're being addressed with urgency, sir.
Supplementary?
Sir, I'm going to take that as a no, that not all consultants are accepting the findings of the Royal College report. Given that this is a matter of absolute public safety, what reassurance is he prepared to offer the public that we are in a safe, that he is in charge of a department where the treatment is safe if we have consultants who are not accepting Royal College reports?
So I don't think anybody in health can ever give a 100% guarantee about anything. The one thing I can guarantee 100% is that this is receiving my absolute attention. There are limits, from a political perspective, there are limits to what you can do. But I recognise that there's a problem. I think it's public knowledge that there's a problem, and I'm in the process of dealing with it. I can do no more than that, sir.
Deputy Jones.
Thank you, sir. During the last States Assembly, the Minister acknowledged there was a number of elements surrounding the report that he did not have full knowledge on at that precise moment. The process taken to contact different affected patients, accountability process, outstanding actions from the report. But he did say that he would share the answers with those asking the questions, and I'd hope the wider Assembly and the public. Has the Minister been able to share the answers to the questions he was unable to answer at that time, and if not, why not?
Minister.
Not sure that relates to the initial question, does it, sir?
Well, the question, absolutely,
The question was very
is
simple.
related to
Why
the publication of the full
haven't I published
report.
the report and...
Sorry, let me finish,
Sorry.
Minister. The question is about publication of the full report, and members have asked you about radiology services in general, which I thought was appropriate in the circumstances. But of course, you're right to say that the question was about publication, and if you're unable to answer questions that aren't directly on that issue, then of course that's a matter for you.
Very happy to say that there's a very comprehensive report going to be published on the 18th of July that's ready for the board next week. So I think most of those questions will be answered in those reports, sir. If any member finds that there's anything that's been asked that isn't in those reports, then if they contact me directly, I'll be very happy to answer them.
Deputy Gardner.
Thank you, sir. And I'll ask a follow-up question. At the previous state sitting answering to my question, the Minister committed to publish the action plan as a response to the radiology report. Would the Minister confirm that this action plan would be published alongside with the report?
Yes, sir, the action plan, the intention is for that to be published on Thursday as well.
Supplementary? Deputy Joseph.
Thank you, sir. My recollection is that the Minister was appointed in January. He informed the Assembly in earlier answers that he was informed about this issue in March. Why the delay, if I may ask?
Minister.
I think that would have to be a question for somebody else. Because in life, if you're not aware of something, and you don't know that it's there, you don't go looking for it, and you have to rely on somebody else telling you. So for the purposes of this question, I did look up where I could find any evidence of having been informed. If I'd been informed about it verbally, I can't recall, but in writing, it was during the course of March that I was informed.
Sir, could he inform the Assembly who informed him of this?
Well, it'd be unusual to ask for a name. Do you want
Well, not a name, but a post holder.
Yes,
Of course, one would never deal with the name.
Off the top of it, I asked my ministerial secretary to look it up for me, and they just came back and told me that I was first informed in March. I didn't think to ask who it was that had told me, but if the deputy is really that interested, I can find out for him.
It's the post holder I'm interested in, sir.
Yes, the post holder, yes. Deputy Stevenson.
Thank you, sir. Does the Minister accept the findings of the report?
Minister.
Well, I'm not a clinician, as I've said many times before, and it would be rather daft of me not to, sir.
Supplementary?
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister make it clear, therefore, that he will not tolerate the refusal to accept Royal College reports and findings?
Minister.
I think I have to be, sir, left to deal with it in a way that has the best outcome, because we, much as we might like to put our foot down, we don't want to be faced with a radiology department with no radiologists, do we, sir?
Final supplementary, Deputy Wilson.
Thank you, sir. Can the Minister tell us what systems are now in place to address the failings and how women will know, given the lack of transparency and accountability with regard to the reporting on this issue? And can he also confirm if he has actually read the report himself?
Minister.
I make the point again that I think this question is related to the British Society of Breast Radiologists, as I said earlier, so it's not part of the same report.
Thank you, Minister. Question 6, Deputy Catherine Curtis will ask of the Minister for Infrastructure. Deputy Curtis.
Thank you, sir.
Question 5.
Further to his recent comments that he would be keen to increase the number of disabled parking bays, will the Minister provide a timeline for this work to be achieved?
Minister.
Thank you, sir, and I thank the Deputy not only for her question but also for her attending the recent public meeting that I held on the subject. So I'd like to report that while there may be localised parking pressures, my department's survey work shows that overall there is capacity both on and off street throughout the week. However, that is not to say that the service cannot be improved. There are ongoing discussions with relevant authorities around opportunities for increased blue badge parking at specific locations in the centre of town. For the present, this is policy under development, but I'm looking at Vine Street, New Street and Library Place. More widely, my department is developing curbside parking policies which will consider how valuable curbside parking should be allocated between competing demands, including blue badge parking and other activities essential to the vibrancy and the commercial success of town, such as unloading bays, taxi cabs, bus stops, short stay pick-up and drop-off, etc. And this work will commence late this summer. Thank you.
Supplementary?
Yes, please, sir. Will the Minister prioritise more disabled parking spaces at the hospital entrances?
Minister.
Yes, sir, indeed. And the feedback at that meeting was the lack of spaces in and around the hospital. And I'm pleased to say that members of the hospital team are already looking at how we can increase that. And members of my department are also looking, sir. We will do that as soon as we possibly can.
Deputy Iyer.
Thank you, sir. The disabled parking, as the Minister knows, from Broad Street was transferred to Damaris Street. Now that the Romwell's development in Damaris Street has been approved, will he ensure that there will be no loss of disabled parking in that area? Thank you, sir.
Minister.
Sir, I will do my best to ensure there is no loss of disabled access, sir, in and around the centre of town. So we're actually looking to increase the amount of on-street parking for blue badge holders, not decrease it. Thank you, sir.
Yes, Victoria.
Would the Minister state whether the plan to increase parking is based on current demand or future demand?
Minister.
So it's based on the feedback we've had from current users of blue badges. So in terms of demand, there are 5,200 users locally, which is 5.1% of local residents. The UK average is 4.6%, so we're very close to that average. So it's also worth noting, sir, that people who have got a blue badge can park on street or in car parks using a pay card, and they can park for double the length of time, sir. So there is plenty of parking available. It's the blue badge specific spaces we're looking to increase.
Supplementary.
And could the Minister update us whether he thinks the balance between car park parking for blue badge and on-street is something that could be looked at?
Minister.
Yes, sir, and following the meeting that I held, sir, we're going to write to all of the holders of blue badges to explain some of the questions that were answered, some of the FAQs, sir. For example, people who have a blue badge and who work in town, it's possible for them to get a day permit for short stay car parks. Not many people are aware of that, sir, and we want to make that more widely known. Thank you.
Final supplementary, Deputy Curtis.
Yes, thank you, sir. I thank the Minister for his answers. And could he say, will the Minister allow blue badge holders to have access to Broad Street, for example, for collecting sedated patients from the dental practice?
So I'm not sure what currently happens at the moment, sir, and I'm sure that's a challenge for both able and non-able-bodied people, sir. So I need to take that away, sir, and come back to the Deputy. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Question 6, Deputy Doublé will put to the Minister for Education and Lifelong Learning. Deputy Doublé.
Thank you, sir. Further to his response to question 61, 2024, will the Minister provide an update in respect of the work to develop the provision of 15 hours additional nursery care for 2 to 3-year-olds and the establishment of a pilot scheme to access empty primary school nursery places?
Minister.
Thank you, sir, and I thank the Deputy for the question. Sir, when I answered the oral question 61 in April this year, I advised that if there was any way to have some pilots in place by September, rather than only the plan to do so, it will be acted upon. I'm pleased to advise the Deputy, sir, that 3 primary school nurseries will be extending the hours they are open each day from September, October this year. Plat Douay will be expanding the wraparound provision to include nursery children from September 24. They plan to open from 7:30 to 5:30 p.m. for 48 to 50 weeks a year. D'Auvergne will be extending their wraparound provision till 6 p.m. to include nursery children. This may need to be from October half term due to staffing. I'm awaiting confirmation of the staffing on this. Trinity already had an early years breakfast club for their nursery children from 7:45 a.m. and will be extending the day to 5 or 6 p.m. to meet parental demands. Date of commencements will be confirmed this week by the head teacher. So let me look at my note. I want to give accurate numbers. These extended provisions at 3 primary schools will offer more hours to 79 existing users of the nursery, young children, and hopefully incentivise parents to take up some or all of the 32 unused spaces. So I want to stress, though, that the plans we have to continue in respect of extending childcare and early education offer will be underpinned by the principles of choice, affordability and accessibility for families. Maintaining high quality services are the key to success of any policy development in early years. Thank you, sir.
Supplementary.
Could the Minister address the entirety of the question, including the part about the 15 hours for 2 to 3-year-olds, please?
Yes, sir. To extend the hours to 2 to 3-year-olds, we have to open nursery places. The first thing to do is to extend the hours in our 3-year-old spaces and use the unused places in primary schools, in our state schools. That's exactly what the previous answer to the question was about, in order to hopefully free up spaces for 2-year-olds in other sectors. But as I said previously, sir, I'm not going to offer 15 hours of universal care when the provision is simply not there. So I want to ensure that we have a measured approach which maintains the ability to have quality early years provision across the sector as we increase 2-year-old provision. And when that is in place, at a point where I believe that we are a sustainable place to do that, then that is the time to offer the 15 hours of care. I will remind the Deputy that there are over 100 eligible children that now benefit from funded part-time places within the registered childcare sector or registered childcare minder that come from the Best Start Nursery Plus scheme that is in place. So we are on our way, sir, to starting to extend those hours. And I hope that's understood. Thank you, sir.
Supplementary, please, sir.
You've had a supplementary, Dr. Doublé.
No, sorry, sir. That was just asking the Minister to answer the entirety of the question. My supplementary would be, could the Minister just confirm that the 15 hours additional care for 2 to 3-year-olds that was committed to will not be delivered by this autumn? I just want to check my understanding of that.
Minister?
Yes, sir. This autumn, if the Deputy refers to September 2024, then no, it wouldn't. So I think the Deputy is fully aware that nursery places really are applied for in February and March. There were no previous plans at all ready for a previous February and March, which really need to be in place the year before, so to extend that nursery provision. What we've managed to do, and which I'm pushing officers very hard to do, indeed, sir, there are more meetings happening this week during this meeting where we may be able to announce some other areas of provision. But that needs to be done at speed, but it needs to be done in a meaningful way. We're starting really from scratch in terms of the practical provision of places. The plan was in place, the ideas were in place, the report is in place, and I accept all of those things, and that was excellent work done across the sector. But in terms of providing the places, sir, There was no way they were going to be available for autumn this term, but we are working as quickly as we can, and that's what we will continue to do. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Deputy Gardner.
Thank you, sir. And I would like to congratulate the Minister to get through the 3 pilots this year. As Minister aware that 2 to 3-year-old are delivered by the private sector, would the Minister advise what engagement he had with Jersey Early Years Association?
Yes, thank you, sir, and thank you to the Deputy. So I believe we have a very positive relationship with JEA, Early Years Association. Certainly following negotiations over, I was going to say solidifying the offer from the NEF, but I can't think of the word, sir. Verifying so they know where we are. Yes, the private sector will be really important in delivery of 2 to 3-year-olds, but we need to work together with our state schools, and that conversation is ongoing and will continue to be ongoing so that we can provide the best possible facilities and that we use the facilities that we have in the best possible way. And I'm pleased to state in this assembly that we do need the cooperation of the private sector, the state schools, and importantly, the third sector, those charity provisions that provide a lot of nursery care as well. If we can get those 3 areas working together, we can extend the provision to 2 to 3-year-olds, and that would be a really positive thing for the island, sir.
Supplementary.
Yes, thank you. And it's absolutely important to utilise places at the state schools. Can the Minister advise what feedback did he have from the Jersey Early Years Association and from the charitable sector? What needs to be done to be able to deliver free 15 hours for 2 to 3 years old?
Yes, thank you, sir. In terms of feedback, there are ongoing, if you like, negotiations as to where we can provide that care will be the feedback. And that, as the Deputy would know, they're on their early stages in terms of the practical nature of providing those places. But I believe, sir, that the private sector and the third sector are absolutely on board with wanting to extend their provision and absolutely on board with understanding the need that's there. Because what it will give is a security for that sector of our economy in terms of the provision of nursery spaces. And I think, sir, we're all agreed, and we can all agree, that the economic benefit of enabling people to have good quality childcare early on as they return to work is really quite easy to identify and something that's very important for us going into the future, sir.
Deputy Stevenson.
Thank you, sir. Given that this government has previously committed to the 15 hours for 2 to 3-year-olds, can we have a bit more clarity on the timeline that the Minister is working to when he hopes that it can be in place, appreciating that there are challenges?
Thank you, sir, and it's a really good question. I mean, if the officers are listening, they'll have their head in their hands when I say to them, I want this to happen as soon as we possibly can, because they're under quite a bit of pressure from me, and I make no apology for that. So I would like to have this in place as soon as we possibly can, even if it's a phased approach, perhaps. I don't know about the best way to do that. We have to be careful that we don't just provide 15 hours for provision that is not there. I'm hoping that by September 2026 we'll have a significant increase in the level of 2-year-old provision across the island. And so I think there will come a point where I have to make that decision, and I'm happy to go to the Chief Minister and the rest of the Council Ministers and say, I believe we are at the point now where we can offer those 15 hours of free childcare because the provision is in place. So I would hope that it is before the next election, and the reason that is the case, because if it's in place, then hopefully it won't be changed afterwards. And I think we all agree that this is something that we necessarily need to do. Thank you, sir.
Supplementary.
Thank you, sir. Is consideration being given to extending the school nursery ages to include 2 to 3-year-olds?
Thank you, sir. Yes, and that's a good question. That's something I think that's been talked about for some time. Again, I think we're at the point, we seem to come to a lot of catch-22 situations in education where is the provision available, therefore when are we going to do it? If the provision is available there, then that is something I think we can actively look at. But we need to have that provision available. That means, I think, a significant change for our state schools in the provision of 2-year-old spaces as well. Whether we can do that or not is another question. But as we develop our provision across the island, using private sector, third sector and our state schools, I think we will be in a much clearer place as to what we can provide in terms of provisions for 2-year-olds and whether we want to extend the law downwards in terms of that provision. I personally think, I do understand, sir, and I would like to reassure the Deputy and other deputies as well that I do see the value in the early years provision and that quality of provision, because it provides a really good basis for our young people going into schools later on. The best we can do at the beginning, the better they will achieve in the long term. And so that shows the value of education at all ages. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Could the Minister inform the Assembly when the last time he met with the Jersey Early Years Association and what was discussed in that meeting?
Thank you, sir. I can't remember the dates. It was recently we discussed NEF and we discussed other areas, and at the end of that meeting, so there was a very positive outcome. I'll have to get the date back to the Deputy, but we will meet regularly. I'm not fixed on, you know, I would set minimum requirements to meet as opposed to maximum, but we have to be realistic about their time, my time as well. But I would say so. I believe that we have a very positive relationship with Jersey Early Years Association in terms of childcare, because they recognise my commitment to early years. I recognise the role that they play in our sector, and so I like positive relationships with groups. They help us move forward. Thank you, sir.
Supplementary.
Thank you, sir. And that's good to hear that the Minister meets regularly with the Early Years Association and discusses his plans with them. And I'd like to ask the Minister if beyond funding for these, finding funding, does he discuss with them other elements like recruiting campaigns, school pilots, like other elements and ways of supporting the sector without necessarily just to try to find funding alone?
Yes, sir, and I have somewhere in my notes, but I'm not going to go through them again. Certainly, recruitment and training is one of the vital areas in which we can support the sector. There, I believe, an extra, I don't want to say a number because inevitably somebody will look and say that's the wrong number, but in my head, if I can say to the Deputy, where I can't find in my notes, it's just too many words in front of me, there are around 50 extra places for the early years course at Highland that's been created, which is I would promote to I'm stood here, sir, to anybody who wants to get involved in that important sector of our economy. So yes, training and recruitment will be spoken about, but also, sir, there is ongoing work and regular dialogue with officers who are on the front line delivering. There comes a point, sir, where they don't really want me to interfere in what they're delivering. They just want me to give a strong steer and direction as to where we're going. And I believe officers know what that steer is and know the direction they want me to see them going in, so they can then get on with their job, sir. Thank you.
Final supplementary, Dr. Dublé.
Thank you, sir. Could the Minister outline how he's going to progress the recruitment campaign for the earlier sector that was planned several months ago before his time as a Minister? And does he agree that it's critical that that recruitment campaign is actioned as soon as possible in order to encourage people into this profession?
Thank you, sir. And I thank the Deputy for mentioning that, because it's something I wanted to mention. Yes, absolutely, that recruitment campaign is important. It was planned many, many months ago, but now we have to action that. There's a number of areas that recruitment campaign can be important, not only for young people at Highlands College, but also, I think, across our community, sir. There may be people who are I'm going to think of the right term here so that I would like to be referred to, not as young as they used to be, and maybe wanting to return to work after bringing up a family, for example, and may want to engage in some training for modern childcare and work flexible hours or full-time to return back to the workplace. We have untapped skills out there that we can use via training and recruit. We also have stability to that workforce, sir, because they're settled on the island. So that campaign will be certainly part of that, and it's one of the things that we'll be chasing up this week, sir, because the really good time to do that will be in the next few months, and really get that campaign out there as we look to recruit more for our nurseries, sir. And could I also mention, sir, before I finish, if I may, I think we need to move away from the rigidity of it just being September that we start nursery provision. If places become available in October, November, December, January for 2-year-olds and we can make those changes, we will act on that, sir. And we will provide those places as and when they come available and as and when staff are recruited to take on that role. Because the urgency of the provision, I'm very much understanding, sir, and I am hopeful about. But we will continue to do everything that we can, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Question 7, Deputy Brenner will put to the Chair of the Comité des Connétables. Deputy Brenner.
Thank you, sir. In light of recent concerns regarding possible over-assessments in the allocations of quotas to Grouville properties, will the Chair explain how the Committee is seeking to ensure that the Rates Jersey Law 2005 requirement to encourage and promote uniformity in rateable values throughout Jersey is being met?
Chair.
Thank you, sir, and I thank the Deputy for the question. The Supervisory Committee, which has responsibility for rates matters under the Rates Law, the 2005 Rates Law, is working with the Connétable of Grouville in an endeavour to regularise any alleged historic disparities in rate assessments in Grouville, with a view to encouraging and promoting uniformity throughout the island. Thank you, sir.
Supplementary.
I thank the Chair for that answer. Will the Committee commit to introducing, before the 2025 assessment cycle, an island-wide assessment methodology to be used by all parishes when assessing property and land?
Chair.
So the methodology is used by the various, well, the 12 assessment committees all use entirely the attributes element of a property, and that is consistent throughout the island, sir.
Deputy Ozer.
Thank you, sir. Having been involved in the discussion and debate of the law which the questioner is asking the Chair, would he agree that, given the effluxion of time, the concept of attributes has become effectively seriously problematic, particularly in relation to commercial rates, where attributes bear no resemblance to the economic value of the rates? And would he, in his review, and maybe this is an issue for Grouville, but it's certainly an issue for St Saviour and St Helier, would he undertake to apprise himself of the problem that this issue of attributes, which does not have an economic value, in other words, any linkage to rent, is basically meaning that there is a complete disconnect between the value of rent and the attributes system that he's underlying, and would he undertake to review it and think whether this should now be changed?
Thank you, sir. I would first of all correct the Deputy. There is no connection between the rent and attributes at this moment. That said,
Wait, that's what I said, sir.
That is correct, sir. There is no connection between rent and attributes. That was changed in a previous law to move purely to attributes. That said, sir, the Committee are conscious that we need to involve our systems. We've had further complications arising from situations whereby houses were not dissimilar, perhaps commercial properties were not as dissimilar as they are now. And I think we need to look ahead and view how we can better develop and make fair, certainly the commercial side of the assessment process, which we are dealing with at the moment. And I'm certainly prepared to commit to review that, sir.
Supplementary.
In his between cusp and lip, the chair didn't understand the question initially that I posed. I understand absolutely the importance of attributes and economic value, and I welcome the committee's, the chair's comments that it isn't. And would he meet with me and those that at the time argued against the exclusion of economic value in attributes in order that there can be some real effort made in order to make fair what is clearly an unfair system, because attributes are something that are difficult, where economic value is economic value, and it is a standard practice, I think, available to rate assessors all over the world, except in Jersey.
Chair.
We, as the Supervisory Committee, would be happy to meet anyone and contribute to any evolution of the rates system as it is at present. Thank you, sir.
Deputy Gardner.
Thank you, sir. I would like from the chair receive clear understanding. Would the chair in principle, does the chair in principle agree that we do need island-wide assessment methodology and consistency in implementation?
Chair. Thank you, sir, and I thank the Deputy for that point. We have an island-wide methodology, and I actually had the opportunity to speak to my rate assessor on the way into the States this morning, and it's quite clear there is an island-wide methodology. There has been some drift in Grouville for historic reasons, which needs correction, but I can assure you the some 40 rate assessors in the island are very competent at assessing rates, and I give my thanks to them, all volunteers, for doing so. They are very serious in their approach. They meet together to and take a lead from the Supervisory Committee in how they assess rates, and to ensure, once again, the core of the matter is that there is uniformity, and particularly that there can be no political influence in that uniformity in assessment. Thank you, sir.
Supplementary?
Yes, thank you, sir. I'm grateful for confirming that we do have an island-wide assessment methodology, and I do understand that we did have some drifts, or I would say inconsistencies. What the chair what steps the chair would take to ensure there are no more drifts, inconsistency, or implementations of this methodology?
Thank you, sir. The board. In 2023, the Rates Appeal Board met and noted the Assessment Committee in Grouville hadn't evidenced the methodology used to assess the rateable values. Subsequent to that, the Supervisory Committee provided the report to the Assessment Committee, and guidelines have since been published by the parish to which the appeals related. So as a result, it's good to see that there have been a number of requests for review of rateable values this year, and this will ensure any anomalies are addressed. So there is a process. If there are any disparities, if there are any concerns from householders, there's a very well laid out process through which they can follow to develop their concerns, their appeals, and have that looked at. So it's a retrospective view is taken by parishes on any appeals, and lessons learned from that, and that is fed back into the central system. Thank you.
Deputy Chair.
Thank you, sir. And Deputy Gardner's asked the questions that I was hoping to ask. So I build on what the Conotab has just mentioned about the having a review in 2023 from the State's appointed Rates Appeal Board. And I would like to ask the chair of the committee, will the chair do everything in his power to ensure that relevant data is provided to members of the public who wish to understand how rates assessments are made in other parishes? And is this available? Is there an island-wide availability so that it's clear for parishioners in different parishes to understand as an island-wide how it is, how the calculations are done, and this uniformity is consistent through the island? Thank you.
Chair.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, the Deputy, for that point. And it's a very valid point. Yes, the methodology should be made available, and it can be made available. And I think we've been poor on making it available, I would be quite honest in saying. And I think we need to improve our communications in that vein. And I can assure the Deputy that the Supervisory Committee is keen to do that.
Supplementary.
Thank you. And would the Conotab give a timeline that we could see some changes to this effect, so that there will be some kind of tightening around this availability, so there's more transparency related to how the rates are calculated throughout the island, so that it is clear to ratepayers that there is this uniformity as prescribed in the law?
So my view off the hoof, so to speak, speaking to the Assembly now, is that it would be better dealt with at the time when the assessment notices are sent out, which is towards the end of the year, and a full explanation given at that point as to how the methodology will apply to the particular properties. But once again, sir, it's something that the Supervisory Committee will fine up in future discussions in the coming month.
Deputy Miles.
Questions have been asked.
Deputy Wilson.
Thank you, sir. Would the Constable let us know the timeframe for when he will be able to provide the methodology for the public? And as part of that, does he think it's helpful to provide an explanation as to what attributes are?
Chair.
Thank you, sir. I can't provide a timeline right now because we haven't met to discuss the point. All I can suggest at this point is that there have been various responses to freedom of information questions and which are available on the comite.je website. The methodology will cover all types of land, including agriculture and scrubland, non-domestic property, hotel and tourist accommodation, offices, restaurants, shops, industrial garages, workshops, storage, etc. I think to be realistic in terms of timeline, the committee meets once a month. We will discuss this at our meeting next month. We had a meeting on Friday to point out really and agree amongst ourselves that we need to work on this. And so we will develop the conversation. I would like to think by the autumn we'll be in a better position to provide a comprehensive answer so that we can actually put something on the rate assessment notices which will go out in December. Thank you.
Supplementary.
Thank you, sir. Could I just, for clarification, ask the Constable, will that include a definition of what an attribute is?
Yes, sir, of course, that inevitably will have to, because otherwise the public wouldn't understand what they're being rated on. Thank you.
Deputy Doublé.
Thank you, sir. Deputy Joan asked much of what I was going to ask, but building on her questions, could the chair of the committee advise whether the information that is planned to be made available online, will that include specific examples of different types of properties so that members of the public can look at comparable properties across the parishes to compare their own rates with some kind of guidelines of standards of some typical properties on the island?
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Yes. Comparing like properties is sometimes not as straightforward as one would like, whereas a housing estate might be built and several houses might be the same. Time usually causes these properties to evolve and attributes to change. But we do provide, we do work on bands of like properties, or the rate assessors do, but there's no reason why we shouldn't include those that information online for people to access as they should wish. Thank you, sir.
Supplementary?
Supplementary.
Yes.
Yes, thank you, sir. And in terms of rates payers, could the chair of the committee advise whether those individuals who the constables have corporate parents for, typically those who are care leavers up to the age of 25, whether those individuals are exempted from paying rates?
This is a discussion that's come up before, sir, and I think the agreement was those care leavers would be accommodated within other benefits.
Your light's on, Deputy Joseph. You've had a question there.
I do have a question, sir.
You can't ask any more questions. You've had your questions. Final supplementary, Deputy Renouf.
Thank you, sir. Yes. I'm welcome some clarification from the Minister, so from the Chair, on this question of uniformity and rateable values, because my understanding was that there are 11 separate methodologies and only St. Juan and St. Lawrence share them. But would he agree that the best way of ensuring that there is uniformity is for people to be able to make comparisons And therefore, this year, Grooville ratepayers were prevented from being provided with data held by the committee, which was requested to support rates appeals. And so will the Constable undertake to take steps to ensure property attribute data is made available to ratepayers seeking to make comparisons with like properties, as they're required to do under the rates law?
Chair.
Yes, sir. I think I would need to take advice, but it seems to me, sir, there has to be a little bit of privacy with regard to attributes and what can be divulged publicly about a person's property or not. So, whilst I take the deputy's point, I think I have to respond guardedly, and will take advice and respond to him in due course. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Chair. Question 8, Deputy Andrews will ask of the Minister for Social Security. Deputy Andrews.
Thank you, sir. Further to her response to written question 130/2024, will the Minister advise whether consideration is being given to writing off the social security overpayments incurred due to administrative errors within her department, and if not, why not?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. I can confirm that any overpayments incurred due to administrative errors by the department are already being written off.
Supplementary.
Thank you very much, sir. Yes, I would like to ask a supplementary. Can the Social Security Minister provide an explanation as to whether there was a confirmation that was in the public domain confirming that this was the case, because I have not come across it. Thank you, sir.
Minister.
To my knowledge, there hasn't been a publication confirming that that was the case specifically. However, I have written to the scrutiny panel to provide an update to them, and will, of course, provide further updates to scrutiny around the changes that I am making in relation to overpayments. When I asked the department around administrative errors specifically in relation to the previous scrutiny panel's review, the department did say that it was their common practice already to write off overpayments where there were indeed administrative errors. I reiterated when I became Minister that I do not think that somebody on income support who will inevitably be on a low income should be overdue payments because of an administrative error by the department, and it indeed should be a right first time approach being taken by the department in order to minimise such errors.
Deputy Renouf.
Can the Minister state how far back the overpayments, repayments are going back? How far is she taking this backwards?
Minister.
My understanding is that the department were already writing off overpayments where it was the department's fault. If anybody is aware of a situation where somebody has an overpayment that they are still paying and they believe that it was a departmental error, then I would encourage them to contact the department.
Supplementary.
So I'm a little confused because I thought that the Minister had said she'd given a new instruction, but what she seems to be saying is that it's always happened. So I reiterate the question, really. How far back is she prepared to accept claims for administrative error overpayment?
Minister.
If any client of income support is paying back an overpayment that they consider is due to an administrative error, then I would look at each one of those claims individually. It's my understanding that it was already practiced, so it shouldn't be a case of how far back I am prepared to go. It was common practice, I understand, previously, and the department has assured me that they try and ensure that administrative error are few and far between.
Colin Thompson Lawrence.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister give a definition of administrative error, please?
Minister.
An administrative error, or my definition of an administrative error, is when a person or an income support client has followed all of the steps that they were required to undertake, and due to an error at the department level, an overpayment has been incurred.
Supplementary?
Yes, please, sir. And will the Minister provide us with an indication of how much has been retained by clients due to administrative errors by Social Security officers this year?
Minister.
I don't have that figure in front of me, but I will refer back to the Constable in writing and include all members on that answer.
Deputy Miles.
Sorry, so once again, my question's been asked and answered.
Deputy Doublé.
Thank you, sir. Could the Minister confirm whether the onus is on the individuals to reach out to the department to inquire about any situations that might have resulted in them overpaying, or whether her department are looking for incidences of this and contacting individuals themselves?
Minister.
Where the department is aware of an administrative error, then they, of course, will take the necessary steps. When I was reviewing the recommendations of the previous scrutiny panel, one of the things that I asked the officers to provide me was data and evidence about reasons for overpayments. I was quite surprised to find out that the department didn't have that data available. The department, on my instruction, has undertaken some further work over previous months to look at the reasons why overpayments are being incurred, and we are in an area of continuous improvement in relation to this to ensure that we're absolutely minimising the number of overpayments that are being incurred.
Supplementary?
Yes, further to the Minister's response to a letter to my scrutiny panel, which referred to some progress changes relating to the processing of overpayments. Could she give some further detail on what this would look like for the people who are accessing the social security benefits?
Minister.
I am looking to make some changes by September which will reduce the volume of overpayments by up to 50%. That particular change will be around small overpayments that may well be incurred due to the timing of a change in circumstances being notified to the department.
Deputy Alex Curtis.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister clarify whether there is any test of reasonableness in writing off overpayments currently? So if an overpayment was a payment was greater by a magnitude, for example, where an operator had typed in an extra zero, would such a clear overpayment be still considered written off or expected to be noticed by the recipient?
Minister.
I am aware of cases where recipients have done what they needed to do and have, in good faith, received an overpayment and in good faith then spent that money without realising that they were not due it. In those circumstances, I think that we need to think about what the effect of recovering that overpayment would be on that person who has actually acted in good faith and didn't realise that they were receiving an overpayment, because as far as they were concerned in the letters that they received from income support, they were receiving the correct amount of money. They have indeed given income support the right level of information, and there was no reason that they would have known that an overpayment would have been incurred. So in those cases, I would be willing to write off that kind of payment.
Supplementary?
Yes, thank you, sir. So will the Minister, in clarifying these answers, perhaps outside the Assembly for members, also clarify if there will be a position taken at which point where a number is so obviously not something a recipient should be receiving, and one hears of stories of people receiving lottery sum style winnings through administrative errors, that these will not be written off no matter what circumstances?
Minister.
I am unaware of any income support client receiving a lottery-style winnings type of overpayment, but yes, I will undertake to inform the Assembly how we would avoid that. But again, I will reiterate, it has to be our focus to get things right first time and absolutely minimise the number of overpayments that are being incurred.
Deputy Tadia.
Does the Minister acknowledge that there's a human cost as well as a potential financial cost, and that errors which are not those of the client or the civilian also have a psychological and physical toll on the individual? And so the best scenario is to avoid the errors in the first place.
Minister.
Yes, I absolutely acknowledge that cost, and I couldn't agree with the Deputy more. The best scenario is to avoid those situations in the first place.
And does the Minister agree that sometimes there's an unfortunate narrative where the individual who's made no error whatsoever, but it's an actual error by an officer or a worker in the Social Security Income Support Department who's made the error, but it's the client who has to pick up the stress of it all? Will she outline what steps she is taking to make sure that there is, firstly, more accountability in the department, but secondly, to make sure that these errors do not occur in the first place?
Minister.
I want to make it clear that officers within the department are working incredibly hard, very often under increased stress and pressure on some quite emotional cases. And I will do whatever I can to support officers to ensure that they're adequately resourced in order to process claims in the best possible manner. I believe that the officers are acting with the best of intent. I also think that there is increased pressure due to the numbers of changes in circumstances and the volume of work. So there's more work that needs to be done in order to support officers, and we also have an ageing and outdated IT system that needs to be replaced. So I am working on taking forward the programme to replace that outdated system to provide further support to those officers as well.
Deputy War.
Thank you, sir. What is the legal position with regard to those who have refunded the department due to an admin error? Are they now able to reclaim their payment?
Minister.
I don't think as Minister I could give legal advice. I think that would be a question for the Attorney General and not myself.
Supplementary.
No, thank you.
Deputy Andrews, final supplementary.
No, thank you, sir.
Question 9, Deputy Brenneth will put to the Minister for Infrastructure. Deputy Brenneth.
Thank you, sir. Further to his response to written question 255/2024, will the Minister state the annual budget he believes will be required to deliver the government's public realm strategy?
Minister.
Thank you, sir, and I thank the Deputy for his question. Sir, the Public Realm Movement Strategy provides a strategic framework for the planning and development of St Heliers public realm. The strategy sets out key objectives, not a project programme. This is a function of the funding and access to streets to undertake works. The works require repaving, new planting, alfresco areas, crossings and other street layout changes. This work by its nature has to be carried out whilst maintaining access to business, the community and amenities with a minimum of disruption, meaning that construction has to be phased around certain seasons of the year to avoid the functioning of town. Regardless of the budget, what is required for a successful public realm programme is consistent funding. So it's often regarded to as the hokey-pokey budget, sir, because it's in, it's out. So what we need is some surety. So the forthcoming government plan will set expenditure which both balances spending priorities and provides a sensible public realm programme that balances our ambition with achievability. I'd like to assure the Deputy and members the new government plan will include continued investment in this important area. Thank you, sir.
Supplementary.
Thank you, sir. In his answer to question 255, the Minister said the Deputy Chief Minister is, quote, undertaking exploratory work to look at a more adventurous public realm programme, including sports facilities and illness prevention, end quotes. Can the Minister state how he anticipates such a programme would be funded?
Minister.
So that would be a question for the Deputy Chief Minister, sir, because I am the Infrastructure Minister, sir, and answering about the public realm. Thank you.
Deputy Ozef.
Thank you, sir. The Minister spoke about hokey cokey and the, I assume that he meant the problem that exists in now having a year-to-year budget. Would he agree that the only way to really get rid of the hokey cokey is to go back to 3-year fixed budgets?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. From a personal perspective, sir, I'm used to working with longer budgets than 12 months, sir. I'm also used to working with zero budgets, and I'm a fan of both, sir. Thank you.
Sir, can I press the Minister kindly? If he says hokey cokey in the answer to one question, then surely he is alluding to the fact that he wants some certainty in terms of minimum budgets for the underlying question that is being answered.
So the question of budgeting, sir, should be directed to the Treasury Minister, in my opinion, sir. Sir, as the Deputy will be aware, we face different pressures at different times and we have to adjust our plans, sir, and that is what we do. Thank you, sir.
Deputy Alex Curtis.
Thank you, sir. In the original answer to the first question, the Minister referenced a St Helier public realm and movement strategy. Will he confirm this is a strategy published in 2021 and whether he intends to replace that or modify it before implementing projects?
Minister.
Thank you, sir, and the Deputy is correct. So we are going to be discussing at the next Regeneration Steering Group meeting on the 24th of July, sir, Public Realm and St Helier Task Force, sir, and the terms of reference, which will include reviewing that strategy. Thank you.
Final supplementary, Deputy Renouf.
Thank you, sir. Is the Minister able to give any indication at all about the sums of money that he thinks are required to deliver this the public realm strategy? He's talked about it being in and out. He must have some idea of the sums of money. Are we talking millions of pounds, tens of millions of pounds? Can he give us some idea?
Thank you, sir. I can tell you, the Deputy, that it's millions of pounds, sir, but I wouldn't like to give a preview of the government plan. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Minister. Question 10, Deputy Journal, put to the Minister for Justice and Home Affairs. Deputy Journal.
Thank you, sir. In relation to the Task Force on Violence Against Women and Girls report published in 2023, will the Minister provide her top 3 priorities in relation to the report's recommendations?
Minister.
Thank you, sir, and I thank the Deputy for the question. The Government has accepted all of the recommendations of the Task Force on Violence Against Women and Girls and made them a strategic commitment through the CSP. Recommendations are component parts intended to fit together to address gender-based violence, and it is artificial to pick the individual recommendations. Ultimately, the response to recommendations must be joined up series of actions to facilitate holistic change. The recommendations are being progressed. Already plans have been put in place in relation to the development to introduce a dedicated service to support victims of harmful online behaviour, starting with the provision of a UK support, and by the end of 2026, moving to a fully trained support service located in Jersey. In partnership with the Social Security Minister, we've agreed and funded the ability to allow people who are in a domestic violence situation to be able to leave that situation immediately and be able to be funded, whereas this did not happen before. And this has already had a positive impact as we've received feedback from third sector agencies.
Supplementary.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. And I thank the Minister for her answer. And understanding that these recommendations all need to be worked on together. And one of these, a few of the recommendations are related to legislative, they're recommendations for independent reviews, including the criminal justice system. So could the Minister advise what discussions he's had with stakeholders on the best way forward to establishing independent reporting?
Minister.
Sir, in relation to the criminal justice system, I have liaised with the States of Jersey Police, and a review of their processes is going to be underway shortly. I've had consultation and a meeting prior in the last 10 to 12 days with a barrister from the UK, and we will be looking at both the reviews in relation to the Law Officers Department and also the courts.
Deputy Doublé.
Thank you, sir. Could the Minister advise what level of funding she believes is required to enact all of the recommendations from this review, and how that might be phased, and what she would be requesting as part of the government plan this year?
Minister.
Obviously, the funding in relation to the reviews is already within the plan, and there will be further funding required in relation to policy officers. There will be potentially further funding, but at this stage it is very difficult to say exactly how much that money will be, because it's going to be an ongoing process. During the feedback on the report, it was given a timeline of how long this will take, and obviously it's not going to happen overnight.
Supplementary.
Thank you, sir. Could the Minister give some indication of what she believes the timeline will be to deliver all of the recommendations, please?
Minister.
Sir, we are progressing well, and I would like to be able to have as many of the recommendations completed before 2026, when obviously there will be an election, because obviously we do not want any of those recommendations to slip through the loop. We want to ensure that this task force review and its recommendations have all been completed, and that is my aim.
Deputy Jeune, final supplementary.
Yes, so thank you. And following up from my question before to the Minister about independent reviews with the criminal justice system, could the Minister give an indication of the discussions she's had with stakeholders and the steps she will take in the independent review related to the family court review that is urgently needed? I have met with all of the participants within the family court. There was a roundtable discussion with 15 to 20 people, and as I said, I have had consultation with a UK barrister. We will sit down to look at, and also I have officers within the policy team who are looking at terms of reference. We will look at some of the things that have clearly already been resolved, and then I, with her, will actually then come up with a plan, and she will then look at reviewing the family courts, as well as all of the other courts within this process.
Thank you, Minister. Question 11, Deputy Andrews will put to the Chief Minister. Deputy Andrews.
Thank you, sir. Will the Chief Minister advise what plans, if any, he has to engage with non-public entities regarding the need for gender pay gap data and income ratio reporting?
Chief Minister.
Thank you, sir. I understand from the Diversity Network's latest event on gender pay gap that there is a sizable group of individuals and companies who are already introducing their own annual pay gap analysis and encouraging others to do the same. Deputy Elves hopes to attend the Diversity Network workshop in the autumn to engage with existing plans for analysis and publication of the gender pay gap. In particular, we are keen to ensure consistency in reporting by promoting the adoption of a shared methodology across all companies and sectors. We think that is essential for the policy, or any policy, to be effective. I believe this is a best approach given the considerable complexity and cost of introducing for a formal or legislative requirement, and the diversion of resources away from other core agreed priorities that result in the government dictating requirements to employees. So we'd much prefer to use guidance. Thank you.
Supplementary, Deputy Andrews.
Yes, please, sir. I understand, of course, that the Council of Ministers have been in contact with a group that has obviously been making a lobbying effort to ensure that gender pay and income ratio reporting is potentially mandatory in Jersey. But does the Chief Minister not agree with me that it might be better to hold a consultation to engage more stakeholders who may not have even taken part in the conversation about gender pay and income ratio reporting, and for that to commence before January 2026? Thank you, sir.
Chief Minister.
Thank you, sir. And I certainly don't disagree with the Deputy, and we could well extend our activities to doing that. But in the short term, we'll work closely with the diversity network, sir, as they seem to have a comprehensive group of islanders involved in the process. That could lead to further action on government's part. But I want to reiterate that it is our preferred position not to introduce legislation that would result in dictating requirements. Thank you.
Deputy Chair.
Thank you, sir, and I thank the Chief Minister for acknowledging the Diversity Network's campaign group called Mind the Gap, who a number of us in the States Assembly members are also supportive of and part of that group. But I'd like to just correct the Minister. He said there's many companies that do this. I think at the moment, there's only 3 or 4, including obviously the government of Jersey. And though this group is consulting widely with employees, there's still a lot of education and needed to be done in Jersey. So could the Minister advise if he's concerned that the lack of reporting in Jersey makes us fall behind our competitors in Europe and the OECD, especially in light of the impending EU Pay Transparency Directive that is being developed? That will include gender pay gap reporting.
Thank you, sir. The government is not overly concerned at this stage, but of course that is on the premise, sir, that we are making progress and will continue to make progress. We understand there are economic reasons for gender pay gap equality, and we want to ensure we help and provide as much encouragement and guidance for companies to do this as possible, sir. And that's our stance that we will continue to take, sir, and monitor closely the progress, sir, because it is important we do make forward steps in this area, sir. And if we feel we are getting behind, sir, then we will ramp up efforts.
Supplementary.
Yes, thank you, sir. And a number of times we've heard the Chief Minister and other ministers explain the concern of the burden on businesses around gender pay gap reporting and why it shouldn't be mandatory. But I was wondering if could the Chief Minister advise if he believes that the government could set a methodology for Jersey companies to help in their comparison and to help the companies in how to do reporting, rather than companies going their own way and picking up methodologies, whether that's the EUK or, for example, when the EU Pay Transparency Directive comes in, and whether that is something that the government could do, is working on methodology.
Yes, I do say, and I said in the original answer that it's imperative the government thinks that we adopt a shared methodology across all companies and sectors, because if we don't get that, we're going to get inconsistency in reporting. So I would fully support that approach, sir, and the government will do all of it can to make sure there is a shared methodology.
Deputy Doublé.
Thank you, sir. I'm pleased to hear that the Chief Minister has moved on in his thinking, and I reiterate what others have said about this campaign group helping to move his thinking on. And would the Chief Minister reflect on Part A of my proposition, which has now timed out, but would he reflect on that Part A whereby I have requested him to ask that businesses voluntarily publish a pay gap report? Has his thinking now moved on, and does he now want to send out messages to businesses with 50 or more employees to ask them today in the Assembly to voluntarily publish their gender pay gap data and accompanying narrative and action plan?
Yes, sir. I thank the Deputy. I think her proposition, whilst we couldn't support it, whilst there's no shared methodology across sectors, it certainly did help to focus thinking, and we're grateful for that. we will certainly do all we can to encourage good practice and publication of gender pay gaps reporting, sir, not just in the public sector, but with our arm's length organisations and state-owned entities, sir. Don't have a problem with that, sir, and we'll work closely with interested bodies to achieve that in the months ahead, sir. Thank you.
Supplementary.
Yes, please, sir. I will be working on something to relodge in this area, and would the Chief Minister agree to meet with me and potentially some representatives from that campaign group so that we can reach something mutually agreeable that business leaders in the island are also agreeing with?
As always, sir, very happy to meet, and I'll include the relevant ministers in that meeting, if I may. Thank you.
Deputy Renouf.
Sir, Deputy Doublé has asked the question I would have asked.
Deputy Andrews, final supplementary.
No, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief Minister. Question 12, Deputy Doublé will ask of the Minister for Children and Families. Deputy Doublé.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister advise when he intends to lodge the Commencement Act for the Children in Civil Status Amendments Jersey Law 2024, which was adopted by the Assembly on the 19th of March 2024, providing, amongst other things, equal parental rights to same-sex parents?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. As the Deputy is aware, prior to the Commencement Act being lodged, further regulations providing consequential amendments to other legislation amendments to the legal concept of legitimacy and amendment of the adoption particulars must be drafted, debated and approved by the Assembly. Development of these regulations is underway and progressing well. It remains my intention to lodge them this year. The Commencement Act will follow swiftly after the regulations if they are approved by the Assembly. Thank you, sir.
Supplementary.
Yes, thank you, sir. I thank the Minister for his response. I'm pleased to hear that it's still being prioritised. Could the Minister clarify, will the consequential amendments be lodged and debated before the end of this year?
Minister.
I thought I'd actually answered that when I said that the intention was to lodge them this year. Thank you, sir.
Sir, just to clarify, they could be lodged by the end of the year, but then debated next year. So my question was, will they be lodged and also debated before the end of 2024, or will the debate happen in early 2025?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. The Deputy will remember that initially 33 consequential amendments were identified before the decision was taken to concentrate on developing the law and consequently amend the legislation at a later date. Sir, this was a decision taken by the Deputy when she was an Assistant Minister with delegated responsibility for the work. Since the work on searching the statute book for necessary consequent amendments restarted, a further 20 further consequential amendments have been identified. The Law Officers Department are currently finalising the search activity and considering the nature of the amendments ahead of the law drafting. Despite this, as I said, the aim is still, as previously mentioned, to lodge the consequent regulations this year. That may, depending on the ability of the law officer and the law drafting department, of course, result in the regulations being debated in 2025. However, as I have stated now twice, it is my intention to lodge them this year. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Minister. Question 13, Deputy Catherine Curtis will ask for the Minister for Infrastructure. Deputy Curtis.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister advise whether he intends to expand the existing legislation requiring compulsory helmets for children when cycling to cover any vehicle with wheels, such as skateboards and scooters, and if not, why not?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. And again, I thank the Deputy for her question. So the safety of our children is of paramount importance, and we continuously review our policies to ensure we are providing the safest environment possible. I'm aware of the popularity of skateboards and scooters among children and recognise the potential risks associated with these activities. But at this stage, I do not intend to expand the existing helmet legislation to include other wheeled vehicles such as skateboards and scooters. I am, however, committed to promoting parental responsibility in relation to the voluntary use of helmets and other protective gear when children are using skateboards and scooters. I believe that raising awareness among parents about the benefits of wearing helmets can be a positive and immediate step towards improving safety, rather than the criminalisation of guardians and potentially introducing barriers to this type of activity, which should be accessible to all. Thank you, sir.
Supplementary?
Yes, please, sir. Would the Minister agree, though, that a comprehensive government helmet policy for children could help to prevent potentially serious injuries and would assist parents in keeping their children safe?
Minister.
So I do believe we do have a policy. So we encourage people who use our skate park, for example, to wear helmets. A policy is different to legislation, sir, and I believe our policy is to encourage people to wear protective gear.
Deputy Tadea.
So talking of the skate parks, where there is a public skate park potentially administered by the government or a locality, does the Minister believe that it might well be reasonable to have it as a requirement that protective equipment, including certainly head protection, is mandatory?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. I can speak from experience, sir, having run a skate park in St John for a good number of years, sir. The challenge is policing. The challenge is policing because often these sites aren't manned, and therefore people will use the sites when there's nobody there. So the encouragement for people to wear helmets is always made, as is the use of guards on elbows, etc. Thank you.
Notwithstanding the issue of policing, does the Minister not agree that most citizens are law-abiding, and if there is signage saying that there is a requirement to wear a helmet, that most people will do it? Most parents would also then tell their children to wear a helmet, and there's also, I suppose, a question of insurance and liability from the parish or the government in that regard. So would the Minister give it further consideration?
Thank you, sir. So to my knowledge, sir, there is signage recommending exactly that, sir, in both at the new skate park at Le Canave and the skate park in St John that I'm familiar with, sir. It's always encouraged, and we encourage those people who have more experience to encourage other participants to wear skate hats. Thank you, sir.
Deputy Gardner.
Thank you Minister for his questions. And Minister mentioned criminalisation. Not like to criminalise the people. And now, if I'm thinking about the law that we are not allowed, it's not illegal, there is a requirement not to ride on the pavements, but we all pretty know that there are not many fines were issued for people riding off the pavement. At the same time, there is a public clear message and people can be stopped and said, you're not allowed to ride on the pavement. Would something similar will not encourage young people to wear helmets as well?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. I think I made it clear when I answered a question to Deputy Jean in May, sir, that I support the wearing of helmets. So it's important that you don't just wear a helmet, sir. It's important that that helmet is secured and it fits you properly and you're wearing it properly. So the policing element is a question for Home Affairs, sir. The legislation comes to infrastructure, sir. And I think we need to do more to encourage people, to encourage their children and their friends and their peers to wear helmets if they don't currently do so. Thank you, sir.
Supplementary?
Yes, thank you, sir. A follow to the response of Deputy Tadea question about the signage. I recently visited the skate park at St. Brulat's, and requirement wearing helmet, it's in small letters like one of the most rules. Would the Minister consider to put the requirement to wear helmet in bold letters on top that it will be clearly visible?
Minister.
Certainly, sir. I haven't seen the signage personally. I've been assured that there is signage there, sir. So if it's not large and like a caricature, sir, I'll ensure that we do something which is bold that people can see and they can't say that they didn't notice it. Thank you, sir.
Deputy Wilson.
Thank you, sir. Could I ask the Minister if he has any data or information that shows the policy currently is working, and will he also consider collecting data going forward on incidents involving these particular items that may actually give him some content with regards to reconsidering future legislation?
Thank you, sir. I thank the Deputy for a question. So I don't have data in front of me, sir, but recently when I was on holiday, I read the book Bike Nation, an interesting read for those of you who are interested in cycling and how it can help environments. But I couldn't agree with their negative observations about Jersey, sir, because they wrote about the introduction of cycle helmets for youngsters. They spoke about the lack of accidents, the amount of people who were already wearing helmets, sir. So there is some data, sir. So the infrastructure team will only collect data for any accident that's on a road, and I'm not aware of any accidents involving scooters or skateboards, sir, for youngsters on roads, sir. But I would imagine that the health department may do for what happens at Lackenaway. Thank you, sir.
Supplementary.
Thank you, sir. Could it be that he's not aware because we don't collect any data, and does he believe that we should?
Minister.
The infrastructure department, of which I'm answering this question, does collect data for accidents on roads. So I'd need to speak to my colleague from health about what data is collected at the emergency department for accidents that are reported there. Thank you, sir.
Final supplementary, Deputy Curtis.
Thank you, sir. Regarding the Minister's comments that policing is a challenge in skate parks, would the Minister nevertheless not agree that a law could help prevent potentially serious injuries to children?
Minister.
I'm not sure what change it would make, sir, whether if we had a law, sir. It's something I'm prepared to go and have another look at, sir. You know, we want to prevent accidents from happening, and any accident we want to be as least impact on the person and the people connected to that person. So I'll go back, sir, and have another look, sir, and I will also find out about the data from the health department. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Minister. Question 14, Deputy Wilson will put to the Minister for Housing. Deputy Wilson.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister explain his plans for increasing the number of homes in the island and what importance he places in those plans on shaping the wider development of the community?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. Thank Deputy Wilson for this question. The broad answer to the first part of the question is the plan is the Bridging Island Plan, which itself contains lots of policies that tackle different elements in how and where we go about producing new homes, from how standards have to be met in the built-up urban environment to the sites that are specifically allocated for brand new homes to be built in the more rural areas. It's got policies on things like splitting up larger dwellings into multiple smaller dwellings. I obviously have a close relationship with the state's delivery partners on new homes, Andium Homes and the States of Jersey Development Company, for example. Andium itself is currently on site delivering hundreds of new homes and is working up its plans to build even more of those in accordance with the Bridging Island Plan policies and the sites that they've that have been rezoned for that very purpose. In terms of the second part of her question, sir, which is quite an open question, and I could just give a short answer by saying it's very important that we make sure that the homes that are built are more than just bricks. They are places in which people will live their lives, want to be safe and happy, and that means it's not just about the bricks and the design of the home itself, but everything around it, the amenity space, the play space, the access to school spaces, and easy transport access and all the rest of it. Within the Island Plan, there are lots of policies that interact with those wider considerations than just the buildings themselves. and I'm frequently approached to provide comment as Minister for Housing when these planning applications are made for new developments, and I make sure I pay close attention to what is proposed, and if we spot any issues in proposals that might affect people's quality of life and how the community can enjoy themselves there, then I make sure that I point that out in those comments and hope that they'll then get resolved in the other parts of the processes that don't necessarily fall to my portfolio.
Supplementary.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank the Minister for his response there. One of the things that we are experiencing, particularly in my parish, is the lack of access to open space, and there's quite a lot going on in relation to developing initiatives for children. But can the Minister outline what specific community development he is driving with regards to the kind of space that he wanted to or has just talked to us about, and how he is informing himself as to how to create the notion and the nature of community as part of the developments that he's responsible for?
Minister.
Well, so obviously the built-up area in St Helier is a place where there's very dense building of new homes in that area. I live there as well, so I understand on a day-to-day basis how these kind of things are affected. So I know that as well as building those new homes there, it's absolutely vital that we get a good mix of people living in those homes, so a mix of first-time buyer, social rental, etc., and right-sizing, of course, a new policy that I've produced that will hopefully play a key role in building those communities too. But also we know, particularly in that area, that there's a desperate need for a new school, and I'm absolutely staunch in my support for that being delivered. And I'm also extremely keen to see that there are better walking and cycling access between those sites so people can safely get to where they need to get to. Youth service provision, obviously a key part of that as well. So I know that there's various discussions and plans that go on. Some of that is delivered directly by Andium themselves, and they have my support when they're doing their public realm improvements. We've seen the new, quite large open space in front of Cyril Le Marchand Court that I think has got a lot of potential, and we've got to work with them to make sure that can be delivered on. But other areas of government as well will have their part to play in that too. And I was pleased to go to the St Helier Rates Assembly recently to support their neighbourhood improvement plans initiative, which is something I'd like to see a lot more of, and I'll certainly be pressuring the Constable of St Helier to make sure that those areas in town where there's a dense population will get those public realm improvements as well, so that those will feel like nicer neighbourhoods to live in.
Thank you, Brennan.
Thank you, sir. And new homes can, of course, be delivered in old buildings as well as on greenfield sites and in new places. The Minister dropped the empty home service. Would he say whether he has any plans to replace it with any actions in his term of office to deal with the empty houses that could become homes?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. The Minister is right that I scrapped the empty home service, and I did that for the reason that it was providing no tangible benefit that I could ascertain whatsoever. And it was clear to me that if we are to make better use of the empty homes that exist in the island, then a more tangible policy approach is preferable there. Part of that is to support, where possible, the actual acquisition of those homes so that they can be brought back into use. And I was pleased to support the Receiver General doing so with a home just metres outside of my constituency recently. But beyond that, I think we need to look at policy initiatives like empty dwelling management orders, which exist to different extents in the UK, but I would be conscious that in delivering that kind of thing in Jersey, that couldn't be done overnight, and it would have to be a bespoke Jersey version of that, not just a copy and paste from somewhere else. I've had brief discussions with policy officers about how we might go about doing that, so I don't have a firm plan in place for pursuing that. And when and if I did, it wouldn't be an overnight thing. That's the kind of policy initiative that would probably take a couple of years to get embedded and working. And I think that is a better thing to focus on than a service that, when push came to shove, was actually just a spreadsheet with data on and not something that actually led to tangible change.
Supplementary?
Yes, sir. I think the Minister has previously spoken about how significant a problem he thinks this is. Will he state whether he intends to bring anything forward in this term of office in this space?
Minister.
No, I won't state that, sir, because at this point I don't know specifically what I would bring, and if it in fact would be the option that I've just discussed. I need to do a bit more thinking about what's possible in this term of office and what resourcing would be required to deliver that. I've made it clear that right at this very moment, my top policy objective is getting a new residential tenancy law in place so that people who are living in private sector rental homes get the security of tenure that they deserve. And when you are living in a home that you know you've got greater security of tenure, you can establish yourself more firmly in that community. Going back to the original question from Deputy Wilson there, that's been my priority at this point in time. If I come to a position where I think it's deliverable to get something over the line in this term of office, or frankly even just starting it in this term of office, then I will absolutely be open and transparent about that and get the Assembly's approval for that. But at this moment in time, I'm not settled on exactly what the timeline for that ought to be.
Deputy Gardner.
Thank you, sir. And I echoing the Minister's response about the school and community spaces within St. Helier, including the upgrade for the playground at the Parade Gardens. Minister is aware, and we discussed that we have, according to the audit in St. Helier, you have 39% of places making the benchmark for the playgrounds. So we are missing almost 60% to meet international benchmark for the playgrounds. Recently, last week, we had approved application for the Rommels for 52 flats. I'm not sure, I haven't seen it, I might missed. I don't think there is a playground, and I'm not sure if there is investment in proximity playground has been done. I know that it's within the planning minister. Would the housing minister, for any further development, ensure that the decision of the State's Assembly to investment into playground will be met?
Minister.
Thanks, sir, and that's a very good question. There are processes in place through the planning system that ought to be taking that into account from the outset. So I can say that I've had one or two planning applications that I've been asked to make comment on from the private sector that did include some play facilities within them, including some that even I was surprised to see, because at my first glance I wondered where you would fit them in and whether development was big enough to justify it on site, but did at least see a proposed development taking into account that policy and including it as part of their plans, which is really good and hopefully shows that the idea is permeating out there for developers for them to consider in part of that. But the planning processes themselves ought to be recognising that that is a policy and that those who are coming to them to seek planning permission should be abiding by that policy one way or another, whether it's them directly providing those facilities or providing a contribution to the investment for that. And I would hope that the Planning Applications Committee is firm on that as well when applications reach them.
Supplementary. Deputy Iyer.
Thank you, sir. How many additional new homes will be required if the Minister removes the need for housing qualifications, as is in his intention? Thank you, sir.
None, sir, because that's not how the policy would work. Just to be clear, sir, based on what I said at the Chamber of Commerce lunch recently, which is not a proposal that is actively on the table, imminently coming to an assembly. I was asked for my opinion, and I stand by this opinion, that it is wrong to ask people to come and work in Jersey and not give them adequate housing rights for them to live a decent life here and and that has economic impacts as well. So I have said nothing that would suggest enabling more people than would otherwise be the case to come to Jersey, just that those who would be coming to Jersey would have decent rights when they arrive here. So that's not a numbers issue.
Supplementary?
Yes, sir, thank you. So is it his opinion that any changes would not affect the ability to purchase a property? Because obviously that would be detrimental to local people in the housing market. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir, that was something I made clear in the Chamber of Commerce speech, that my thoughts were only applicable to rental homes there, not purchase homes. If I may say, sir, I think I've made that comment several times in question time in the Assembly, and I was clear about it in my election manifesto as well. It's not an easy thing to achieve and would require a lot of thinking and lots of number crunching to make sure that however that kind of thing was implemented was transitioned sensibly, so that's not an overnight thing. But I was asked for my opinion on a subject, and my opinion is that the current restrictions on renting for those who come to Jersey to work lead to hardship that we should be prepared to accept.
So, Joseph.
So I wondered whether or not the Minister, in considering this whole question, which he has asked about increasing number of homes, whether or not he has learned anything from the incoming Labour government in the United Kingdom and the importance of building homes and the important linkage with economic growth. And whether or not he agrees with the policies of Rachel Reeves and the Labour cabinet, and whether or not he'll be bringing, if he does so, bringing such enthusiasm to his job in Jersey.
Well, sir, I'm very much looking forward to engaging with my UK counterpart in September this year at the British Irish Council Housing Ministers meeting, where I'll be asking my counterpart there for how that policy exactly is working. It's a different context in the UK because they've got a lot more land than we do, and that's a big part of the discussion there about how towns expand, what kind of land you expand into. So it is different to a small island. I believe it is anyway, because we don't have the huge swathes of land to creep into for development there, and all of the flexibility you have with the size of the sites that you pick. It forces us to be more creative, a restriction that they don't have up there. But the change in policy that the UK government has announced since the election is certainly well-intentioned, and I want to learn more from them, and I'm looking forward to having that direct conversation with them later this year.
Supplementary?
I noticed that the Labour government is actually setting out numbers of target homes, which underlying the question of the original questioner of the number of homes and a mandatory amount. And whilst I understand the Deputy says that we're different, we're not that different. In some areas of the United Kingdom, the same issues of planning arise, and whether or not he would consider, perhaps when he does meet his counterparts, whether or not he would actually consider bringing to his Council of Ministers the mandatory amount of housing, because that's obviously the thing that eludes everybody. There's not enough homes, they're promised, but they're not delivered. Would he consider mandating numbers?
Minister.
Well, so the Bridging Island Plan does have numbers in it, and it looks at those at sites. Okay, they're not mandatory, and of course it's theoretically possible that they may not be delivered if sites aren't pursued quickly enough. I believe that there are options in the Island Plan for what to do, what we could do several years into it, and government taking control of that and driving that forward if they're not naturally coming about through the private sector. So that is a key difference there. The question in the UK over whether numbers and official targets were right or not has been settled by the fact a new government has come in and changed that policy. But I think our Island Plan processes are probably a bit more robust in that regard than what you'd previously seen in the UK.
Deputy Wilson, final supplementary?
Thank you, sir. I thank the Minister for all of those responses. Given what he stated in relation to the development of communities in the public realm, can you tell us what steps he will take next to ensure a home or a school in a community is more than just bricks and mortar. And would he agree with the idea of community development would he agree with the idea that community development would benefit from a much broader perspective to improve people's lives and inform his policy and plans going forward?
Minister.
Well, so she asked what we do next. The discussion of the new school in St Helier is one that I've been actively involved in, and I'm absolutely staunchly pursuing. Obviously, it's the Education Minister that leads on that, but he has my support in doing it. I think it's vital that if we're building new homes in St Helier, it is wrong to not provide the school places for the children who'll end up living in there, because they will end up not being able to go to their local school, and so their parents will have to spend 45 minutes in the car every morning to get stuck in traffic, polluting the air, whilst they drive them to a school outside of the town. And the difference to quality of life that you have by not having to worry about 45 minutes being stuck in traffic, but being able to walk your child to school, to talk and play along the way, and not worrying about the stress of then getting back and missing the start of work, etc. That's a key area there. I haven't yet attended a regeneration steering group meeting, but I anticipate that's on the agenda for me. And I believe that the Minister for Infrastructure has also recently said something about bringing ministers together to for some of that town public realm improvements, and inevitably what that will mean for communities, and I'm looking forward to getting involved in those as well.
Thank you, Minister. Question 15. Deputy Tadier will put to the Minister for Sustainable Economic Development. Yes, Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister advise whether he considers that the acquisition of additional languages is important for the strategic economic development of the island and provides cultural benefits to Jersey?
Minister.
Thank you, sir, and I thank the Deputy for a very interesting question. So there's no doubt in my mind that having a skilled and adaptable labour force is fundamental in fuelling productivity and growth opportunities in what we know is a changing and challenging labour market. There's no doubt, to my mind, that additional languages can be an incredibly useful skill for attaining personal and professional development, and the value of additional language skills quite simply goes beyond the purely economic. It's true that in our increasingly interconnected and international economy, language skills play an important role in creating new connections. And so there's no doubt that the Future Economy Programme, one of the key elements there is about the island has to be international in its outlook. So just talking through some of the cognitive benefits of language skills. So there's no doubt that language skills, having more than one language, improves memory, sir. It also has the benefit of delaying the onset of dementia. But it also helps us with our cultural awareness and seeking social opportunities, which in an international economy is something that we need. Multi-language individuals often have better job prospects, sir. They have often higher earning potential, and from an island perspective, they are more open to global business opportunities. So in response very simply to the Deputy's question, the answer is yes, a resounding yes, sir.
Supplementary.
Thanks, sir. So Jersey is largely, in real terms, an English-speaking island, but we know that French is an official language of government and of the Assembly, and that Jersey is also looking to do more direct dealings in its own right with France, but also the wider continent of Europe. Does the Minister think that there is a window of opportunity at the moment for us to really up our game as an Assembly and as a government to make sure that languages are put more to the forefront of importance, both in the curriculum potentially, but also in government policy?
Minister.
So again, I have to agree with the Deputy there. So there is no doubt in my mind that there is a window of opportunity here. I've seen with my own eyes how having French speakers engage with our counterparts in Brittany and Normandy and France at the national level as well has helped us warm relations quite considerably, sir. And I think we are now in a really good position with regard to our relationships, particularly with Brittany and Normandy. As I said before, the Future Economy Programme makes it very clear that the island has to be international in its outlook, but we also have to have a really strong and deep skills base as we go forward. And therefore, it is really important from my perspective that at the education level, multilingualism is encouraged in many different ways. And certainly so, I would always say that European languages are where we should start, because Jersey is a European island.
Deputy Joseph.
Est-ce que je peux demander si, Monsieur le député, est l'avis que la connaissance de la langue française par les citoyens et les écoliers de Jersey est assez importante et en fait est au niveau qui est nécessaire pour l'avantage de l'île dans les importances et les relations entre Jersey et la France?
I think the current practice is that you then produce a brief translation just for those who didn't follow what you said.
I was going to do Jersey French, sir, but...
Well, try English first.
Okay.
I'm really excited to have a point of order, sir.
Yes.
It's a point of order. I do think, sir, and I do say this as President of the Assemblée Parlementaire de la Francophonie, that when we insist on a translation for what is just another official language of the Assembly, we are in danger of setting a hierarchy of language, and that French needs to have an equal statute to English in this Assembly, sir, because we don't ask for a translation of English speeches into French, and we shouldn't be doing this from French into English, sir. I don't necessarily ask you to change your ruling, but I do ask that it be given consideration in future, because my understanding was that we did do that for Jérier, but French has been a long-standing language of the Assembly before English ever was.
Well, I entirely take your point, and I'll discuss it with the bailiff, but I think I'm acting in accordance with current practice, which is to ensure that not only people here, but people listening, most of whom have English as a first language, can understand what's going on in the chamber. So, a brief translation.
Je pourrais demander un point d'ordre si l'ordre vous avez mis, Monsieur le bailli, et en fait est faite la règle que vous devriez dire à un membre de l'Assemblée qui a la capacité de parler français s'il veut.
Yes. Well, please just produce a short translation
Well,
of your question.
I meant to ask whether or not the point of order was actually sir, whether or not it was actually a requirement to actually translate. But I will do, sir. But I take the point that the president of the APF makes. What I wanted to ask was the minister of the view that Islanders' knowledge of the French language was good enough in advancing our interests in relation to economic matters to do with France? That's why I asked it in French,
yes.
And I meant it in French, and I'll repeat it in French if necessary.
Minister.
Thank you, sir. For brevity's sake, I'll answer in English. But I appreciate Deputy Joseph asking the question in French, and the ability to speak in this Assembly in French is something that I will absolutely defend, sir. In my view, and it is only my view, certainly not a government view, I am concerned about the level of language speaking in the island, particularly with regard to French. It's, there's a reality, I've said this before, about Jersey's geography. We are right next to France. That is never going to change. We have to have good relations with France. In my view, the fact that we have lost our southern supply routes is a massive strategic mistake for this island, and it's something that I am trying to rectify. It helps a great deal if we can go over and speak in French to our counterparts in France. There is, I must say, no doubt in my mind, though, that as we're talking in huge generalizations here, I'm talking about the general level of language speaking in the island. I don't believe it's where it needs to be. That's my perspective. I may be wrong, but it's my perspective. I would say as well, my experience in France is that most of the either politicians, civil servants, or business people that I speak to, their level of English has increased dramatically over the past few decades, and which makes it in itself easier to engage when we have people in the party who perhaps don't speak French, as was the case when I travelled to France a couple of weeks ago. There were people in my party who didn't speak French, but it is a lot easier now because the level of English in France has increased greatly from my perspective.
That brings the time for all questions to an end, unfortunately. So I'm sorry you didn't get a supplementary. And I'm sorry
I get a
didn't get your
supplementary,
question.
sir?
No, the time's expired about a minute ago. I let the minister finish his answer, so I do apologise you didn't get your. or the point of order, one of the two. Deputy Ayo. Yes, we were, different, going to deal with your oral question now, as you've been communicated with, but the Minister didn't get the message, so we'll need to deal with that oral question after questions to Ministers without notice. All right, so we'll need to turn to that. The first period of questions without notice after the Minister for Justice and Home Affairs, and the first question is from Deputy IF.
Thank you, sir. What action is the Minister taking to ensure that every islander who owns a firearm has a firearm certificate? Thank you, sir.
Minister.
Sir, I thank the Deputy for the question. Obviously, each person who has a firearm will have a time span in which to re-register that firearm with the parishes, and that's currently where the registrations lie. Each parish, the period from my memory is 3 years, and that will have to be renewed, I'm told maybe 5 years, but they have to be renewed on a regular basis. So therefore, if there was some that had not been renewed, that information would be passed to the States of Jersey Police, and one would expect then there to be an investigation as to why that has not happened.
Supplementary.
Thank you, sir. I thank the Minister for the response. Will the Minister be promoting a gun amnesty to try to reduce the number of weapons in the public arena? Thank you, sir.
Minister.
Sir, in the past it has been the Justice and Home Affairs Minister who has, in consultation with the States of Jersey Police and the brought forward an amnesty in relation to firearms. However, this does have to have the authority and be sanctioned by the Attorney General, because obviously what you could potentially be doing is removing prosecutions. The parishes themselves, I would assume that could actually do that in consultation with the Attorney General and the States of Jersey Police. And I cannot see that that would make a difference as long as the AG gave sanction and the States of Jersey Police were advised. I do not see why that the parishes could not do that themselves.
Colonel Helier.
Thank you, sir. Is the Minister aware of a case which is receiving a lot of publicity at the moment in the United Kingdom, and it concerns the fact that someone has been sentenced for causing death by dangerous driving to a lengthy sentence, but they will be able to drive again after their, I think it's a 21-year driving ban, which of course will run concurrently with their sentence. Does the Minister support the idea of a mandatory ban from driving for people who are convicted of causing death by dangerous driving?
Yes, sir, I am aware of the case, the tragic case of somebody, and they had, I believe, a previous conviction prior to this one, and they have killed certainly a young child and a mother. And so from my perspective, I actually would like to look at that legislation, but of course that will be another one. But to me, it would be making sense that if somebody has already committed a serious offence of this nature, that they should never be allowed to drive again, and I'll be happy to look at it.
Supplementary?
No, thank you, sir.
Colonel St Saviour.
Thank you, sir. Further to Deputy Tadier's question this morning, sir, there was a recent explosion at Elizabeth Villas, which is a small lane off Montpinel, St Saviour. I'm delighted to say that the family, two of which were hospitalised, are now home. Can the Minister inform members of the cause of the explosion? I know that we must follow due process, but can the Minister inform the members of exactly what happened? Sir.
Minister.
Sir, I thank the Constable for the question. The primacy for the Moorpinel incident on Wednesday, the 26th of June, was the Health and Safety Inspectorate. The site is now subject to their criminal investigation, which is ongoing, and so therefore no further comment will be made at this time.
I thank the Minister for her reply and fully appreciate the need to say nothing until the facts are there. But I'm sure the Minister will appreciate, in the absence of facts, speculation is rife. So as soon as the Minister is able, if she could inform members of what happened, it would be greatly appreciated. Thank you, sir.
So I fully appreciate what the Constable is saying. This is obviously a concern to all members of the public, and I will continue to work with the Infrastructure Minister and the Emergency and Resilience team, and whenever we are able to give an update, then we certainly will.
Deputy Wall.
Thank you, sir. It's been widely reported that the Chief of Police has been in talks with both the Home Affairs and Treasury Minister to explain the potential impacts of operating within the current budgets. Can the Home Affairs Minister explain how she reconciles her role as a deputy with her ministerial efforts to keep police numbers below those voted for in the Assembly in 2019?
Minister.
It's a challenge, sir. Because not only am I a deputy, but I fully understand the emergency services. And I continue within the Council of Ministers to put forward my views and opinions in relation to the funding of all of the emergency services and obviously the States of Jersey Police as well. It is disappointing that over the last a significant number of years, that numbers have declined, but we need to ensure that we work within budgets, but we need to make sure that we also work within ensuring that we get value for our money. I'm very appreciative of all of the emergency services, and in particular the police, who did an exceptionally good job for us yesterday. So I'm fully aligned to the fact that we need to stay within budgets. We need to save money where we can, and I will continue to ensure that that happens for all the emergency services.
Supplementary.
Thank you, sir.
Deputy Moore.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister confirm whether the level or provision of insurance provided to officers of the ambulance service has changed since the move from the Health Department to Justice and Home Affairs?
Minister.
I thank the Deputy for the question. As far as I'm aware, sir, there has been no change of the move from the Health to the Home Affairs. Paramedics can still belong to the College of Paramedics. They belong to unions. However, in relation to legal costs, in relation to an insurance, it would only be for civil cases and not for criminal ones, sir.
Supplementary. Deputy Jones.
Thank you, sir. Following the Freedom of Information publication, where it's found that more than 8,300 firearms, including an anti-tank gun, a bazooka, and 2 walking stick guns, are privately owned on the island, could the Minister advise if she believes that the current firearms law is robust enough, or is she willing to begin a review of the firearms law?
I thank the Deputy for the question, and I'll make no bones about it, sir. I've always been concerned about the level of firearms and what some people may hold. In relation to the firearms law, I said that I had other priorities. It does not mean that the firearms law has drifted off my remit, sir. What it means is that I've now scheduled a meeting with the Comité de Connétable in September, because I've had a recent meeting with the States of Jersey Police in relation to firearms, and I would like to look at some of the opportunities, sir, to make slight changes to the current law, as opposed to actually redoing the whole of the law. The whole of the law does need to be done. It's now 20 years old, but I believe that there are some things that we could do to actually assist us moving forward before that legislation actually comes in full cycle, sir.
Supplementary. Deputy Gardner.
Thank you, sir. Would the Minister advise what she's doing to improve morale and the ambulance service, given the recent conviction of 2 of her paramedics?
Minister.
I thank the Deputy for the question. There has been regular meetings with the senior staff at the ambulance, along with their staff, and obviously all staff within the ambulance service are being supported through wellbeing. So this will be an ongoing situation, and that support will continue, sir.
Supplementary.
Yes, thank you. So would the Minister expect that we might see some resignations or people who are not trusting that they're protected and will not have enough staff at the ambulance?
Sir, I think that is probably drifting into a matter for human resources, and I'm not really able to at this stage to say whether that is likely or not, because obviously moving forward there is a lot of work to be done by the people team to be able to reassure that they are fully supported in the work that they do on a day-to-day basis.
Deputy Doublé.
Thank you, sir. I'm referring back to a question from Deputy Ozef around misogyny and hate crime. Is the Minister aware of a commitment given by a previous Home Affairs Minister, Constable Len Norman, shortly before he died, to make misogyny a hate crime? And does she intend to maintain this commitment?
I thank the Deputy for the question. From memory, I do not remember that he made that commitment, but as I said, in relation to the hate crime, we will be doing a consultation and we will look at all aspects of hate crime. So at this stage, I'm not going to confirm either way, but it's certainly an area that will be looked at in the round for the hate crime legislation.
Supplementary.
Thank you, sir. Does the Minister not think that given the evidence contained in the Vaughan report that gives clear evidence of misogyny being motivation for many, many crimes against women on the island, that no further consultation is needed as the case has already been made? And furthermore, before the law is brought to the Assembly, would the Minister agree to speak to the Chief of Police about taking some immediate action and asking the force to record incidences of crimes which may be motivated by hatred of someone's sex or gender, as this could be done without legislation?
I meet regularly with the Chief of Police, and I'm due to meet him, I believe, later this week. And I will actually ask him those questions because I am aware that other forces have done that. As I said, I want to be able to put forward a full suite of items in relation to hate crime, and as I said, misogyny will be on that list, and I think it's appropriate that when we actually do the consultation that everything is on the table and everything is considered in the round of the actual legislation.
Deputy Brenneth.
Can the Minister update the Assembly on the likely start date of the electronic travel authorisation scheme for travellers to France?
This is still currently underway. The Customs and Immigration are continuing to liaise with the UK, and obviously it's not only us that will have it, it'll also come into Europe. I believe that it's been pushed back slightly due to obviously technical things, but it's an ongoing project, and the Immigration Department are in constant consultation with the UK in relation to this.
Does the Minister have any sight on how the electronic date travel authorisation scheme will interact with the successful Carte d'Identité scheme?
Minister.
So at this stage, we're not sure whether the new electronic system will actually operate with anything other than passports, and obviously that will need to be looked at, and that's part of the work that's ongoing in relation to the Immigration Department. As I said, it's an ongoing project, and at this stage these things haven't been ironed out, but they continue to work on them.
Deputy Moore, there's 40 seconds left. Have you got a question? A short question?
Let's try. Given that law drafting instructions for hate crime were completed some years ago, could the Minister confirm that her reason for going back to consultation on this matter is in order to amend those law drafting instructions?
Minister.
No, sir. I think obviously the hate crime was part of the public order legislation that was due to be brought forward this year, and that part of it was removed. The reason that I think it's appropriate to go back to consultation was due to the number of factors, because it was decided that at that time that Scotland had some really good legislation, but obviously there was some then impact on some of those communities, and there was some issues that were brought out. And from my perspective, I think we need to ensure that whatever legislation that Jersey brings in is that we make sure that it's the most up-to-date and it is best for us as an island.
Thank you, Minister. Now move on to the second period of questions for the Minister for Social Security. Deputy Iyer.
Thank you, sir. Does the Minister believe that the long-term care scheme is sustainable, and will she be seeking to increase the balance of the long-term care fund? Thank you.
Minister.
Actuarial reviews of the long-term care scheme do show that we will need to undertake a review of the fund in the coming years to ensure that the scheme retains its value and is able to provide the services to islanders in years to come. But that wouldn't be required within this election cycle.
Supplementary.
Thank you, sir. Is the Minister intending to make any changes to the availability of the scheme, especially in regard to those who have assets which exceed 419,000? Thank you, sir.
Minister.
The asset issue has been raised with me, and I have looked at that. I have no plans to change that at this current time, but I have asked to look at the reports that have been provided to previous ministers, and I will be doing that over the next few weeks.
Deputy Miles.
Thank you, sir. The highly publicised trial and conviction of 2 paramedics has caused significant public concern. Does the Minister consider that this is an appropriate application of the health and safety legislation for which he is responsible?
Due to the internal investigations, the impending inquest and a possible appeal, it would not be appropriate for me to comment further on this at this stage. I would like to offer my condolences to the Irvine family. This is an incredibly difficult situation for all involved, and it's also an emotional one, and I am limited in what I can say, but I can confirm that I will review the health and safety at work law.
Supplementary. Deputy Balash.
So would the Minister accept that the agricultural industry is very concerned about the implications of the hasty introduction of the living wage?
Minister.
I disagree with the Deputy that this is a hasty introduction of the living wage. It was a previous Assembly, indeed, that made the commitment to move to 2/3 of the median wage. I do understand that certain industries are concerned about moving to a higher minimum wage, and I'm working very closely with the Economic Development Minister so that our economy can be a living wage economy.
Supplementary.
So would the Minister think it is necessary, in the light of this concern, to shut down the opportunity of discussing concerns by the industry within the context of the Employment Forum?
Minister.
There has been a political decision made by both the previous Assembly and then reiterated by this Assembly when we approved the Common Strategic Policy to move towards 2/3 of the median wage. Because of that political decision and the fact that the Employment Forum does not take political decisions, that is why I am bringing the changes to the legislation that I am later today. However, what I will say is going through the process that we have gone through has meant that the relevant industry representative bodies, including the Jersey Farmers Union, have been able to meet directly with the relevant ministers, and I and the Minister for Sustainable Economic Development have met directly with those organisations, which may not have happened should I have followed the process as currently written in the legislation.
Deputy War.
Thank you, sir. Can the Minister advise how much has been spent by her department on the provision of free carpets in 2024 and where the funding for this provision is coming from?
Minister.
I can't advise the exact amounts at this moment in time, but I will provide that to the Deputy. That funding is coming from existing budgets, existing departmental budgets.
Supplementary?
Yes, sir. Does the funding of free carpets have any impact on the ability of the department to provide other services, and if so, in which areas are being impacted?
Minister.
No, it doesn't.
Deputy Renouf.
Thank you, sir. I'm sure the Minister is looking with interest at the activities of the new Labour government. I noticed that one of the commitments they made in their New Deal for Working People was to ban zero-hours contracts, and I wondered what view she was taking about whether Jersey should follow suit.
Minister.
The banning of zero-hours contracts isn't on my current work plan, and I am not currently planning to move any of the other work on my work plan in order to look at that. My own personal view is that there are problems associated with zero-hours contracts. Whilst there have been some legislative changes made recently to provide more protection to people on zero-hours contracts, I think that there is still further work to be done, but I do need to be cognizant about what I can achieve within this particular electoral term of office.
Supplementary? Deputy Kovacs.
Thank you, sir. Can the Minister update the Assembly with the most recent progress on implementing the support with wound dressings and medical hosiery as per my approved amendment to the government plan?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. I'm pleased to say that we now have had a soft launch of a pilot scheme via family nursing and home care, and their patients are now being provided with a new form which enables them to collect wound dressings free of charge from several participating pharmacies. I believe that is 10 in total. This pilot project will enable my department to collect data and also test, refine and enhance the scheme. And I'm confident that we will be launching the scheme in Q4 and have further referral routes and additional pharmacies participating.
Supplementary?
Yes, thank you. What is the process during this pilot for the ones in need of such service and support to apply for this?
Minister.
Currently with the pilot scheme, it is available to family nursing and home care clients. When the nurses from family nursing and home care visit a client within their home, they will provide a form to that person, and then that person will be able to go to that pharmacy and get the dressings that they need free of charge.
Deputy Southern.
Thank you, sir. Given her predecessor's rejection of most of the recommendations of the review of income support benefit overpayments, SR1 of 2023, will the Minister agree to review some of those recommendations, in particular recommendations 3 and 4 about overpayments recovered and the record of information as to delays in getting refunds
that to clients?
Minister.
I don't think it will come to anybody's surprise that tackling income support overpayments is one of my ministerial priorities, and I have recently written to the scrutiny panel to reaffirm that. One of the things that I have asked officers to do, as I said previously in questions, is to look at what is causing overpayments and the reasons, so that we can actually look at the root cause of why we're getting overpayments in the first place. We need to get to a point where overpayments are being minimised. So this is a key piece of work for me, and I am grateful to the previous scrutiny panel for the work that they did in enlightening us around the issues to do with overpayments.
Supplementary. Deputy Doublé.
Thank you, sir. And my question is making reference to the Minister's letter to my scrutiny panel regarding the overpayments and income support definitions, where she has informed the panel that she is going to remove the reference to the term conjugal and also the term independent relationship and replace it with the term partnership. Could she please give some detail on how she's going to define what a partnership is for income support purposes, please?
Minister.
I was pleased to sign off on law drafting instructions to update the rather outdated income support legislation, which currently refers to conjugal relationships, and was indeed leading to my officers within CLS asking rather personal questions about people's private lives that I don't think any of us would consider would be appropriate. And just for a matter of record, now the CLS has stopped asking people about their sex lives, which I don't think has anything to do with their financial dependence on their partner. The Deputy's question was around how we may assess what a partnership is. As I said, this is part of updating the legislation and also updating our processes within income support to identify what is a financially interdependent relationship. And my officers are currently working on the policy and procedures around that, and I will be happy to brief the Deputy Scrutiny Panel on that when I have the formalised policy in writing.
Supplementary. Deputy.
No, thank you, sir.
Deputy Alex Curtis.
Thank you, sir. The legislation we are debating later would remove the need to consult the Employment Forum and would allow them to set offset rates of minimum wage by ministerial order alone without consultation. Does she have any plans to do so should the legislation pass? And if so, what would those changes be?
Minister.
In my meetings with industry representative groups, many have brought their concerns around offsets and appropriate offsets. And in those conversations with them, I have said that I am prepared to look at increasing offsets as long as we don't end up in a place where the worker ends up with less in their pocket as a result of that. I've also said that as part of that work, I want to look at the quality of accommodation that is provided. So that is an ongoing piece of work. And of course, I would be doing that in conjunction with the relevant industry bodies as well.
Supplementary.
Thank you, sir. I'm glad to hear that greater consideration about the quality of accommodation is occurring. Will the Minister commit to ensuring that in those discussions and subsequent orders that those who benefit or take part in an offset will also benefit from the move to the living wage, at least in some part, in their final take-home salary?
Minister.
Yes.
Are there any final questions for this Minister before we move on to the Chief Minister? Deputy Gardner.
Thank you, sir. Follow the amendment accepted by the follow the adopted amendment for the Common Strategic Policy about ageing population and including disability to ensure there are health provision to protect economic prosperity of the island. Would the Minister advise what work has started to make sure that we do have strategic plan in place to address the aging population going forward.
Minister. So that's you. We're still within your time, Minister. Do you want the question? Do you want the question repeated? Yes,
Please.
repeat the question, please.
Okay, I need to repeat now. Follow the adoption of the amendment to the Common Strategic Policy regarding ageing population and disability to ensure the health provision, health funding is supported. Would the Minister advise what work has been done or planned to be done this year, next year, to ensure that we have resilience of the health system for the ageing population and disabilities?
Thank you, Sarah. My apologies when I heard the Chief Minister mentioned I hadn't listened to the question properly. I am currently working collaboratively with many ministers to look at our concerns around the ageing population, and that is one of the key priorities and focuses of the Haywork Plus group. It is also one of the ongoing items for discussion that I have with the Health Minister in our regular meetings. I'm conscious that there's lots of overlapping areas of work between myself and the Health Minister in these areas, and it is really important that I work collaboratively with him in doing that.
Thank you, Minister. We now move on to questions for the Chief Minister. Deputy Ward.
Thank you, sir. So at the last state sitting, I highlighted the outrageous and non-commercially viable 300% plus rent increase attempted to be forced on the tenant at the Lido at Arc de Par, which is essentially a sign or get out ultimatum, or in the housing minister's parlance, a revenge eviction. Unbelievably, the tenant was then informed late last Friday, just ahead of the Arc de Par festival and the bank holiday weekend, that their tenancy was being terminated, despite the Minister for Infrastructure having previously agreed in principle to an entirely different set of terms just weeks ago. This action completely contravenes P61/2022, passed by this Assembly, and appears to undermine the will of this Assembly. So such cynical and unethical behaviour is sometimes, I believe, you'd only find in a school playground or a soap opera. Sadly, the reality is this has real-world consequences for people's livelihoods and their health. Does the Chief Minister condone this type of behaviour, and why has he allowed this situation, which he's been aware of for years, to continue unabated?
This is a matter that's being dealt with by the Minister for Infrastructure and the Constable of St Helier in his position as Assistant Minister with delegated responsibilities, I understand it, for the Lido. And this Assembly will know that both myself, as Economic Development Minister, and the Constable of St Helier have been strong supporters of the current tenant in support of their work to develop the Lido, so not least through COVID. But time has moved on, sir. I'm not familiar with all of the latest details. The Infrastructure Minister is leading it, sir, and I very much hope that they can, that the course plotted for the Lido will be in the best interests of the island, sir. And I understand the current tenant has been informed that the site will go out to tender at the end of October, and I presume the current tenant would be most welcome to participate in that tender process. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Supplementary?
Yes, sir. When will the Chief Minister start to stand up for the small businesses of this island, the backbone of our economy?
Deputy Ward, you need to make your question shorter.
Okay,
First,
so
going to put an entire minute.
Okay, sorry, the final
members will be
sentence.
affected.
Will he commit to supporting the current incumbent of the Lido in achieving the outcome desired by the Jersey Hospitality Association and users of the Lido complex, and bring this debacle to an end?
I've spent most of my life, sir, in small and medium-sized businesses. I spent most of my political career supporting a business, sir, and I tend to continue to support business. But I also have confidence in the current team at Infrastructure to bring about the right solution for the Lido. And if that is with the existing tenant, then so be it. I will support that fully. If it was somebody else who tenders, who wins the tender process, then we will support that route as well. Thank you, sir.
Constable Greville.
Thank you, sir. One of the world's largest motor manufacturers is now advertising on mainstream television, sir, a new option for the new world. They have hybrids, they have electric vehicles, and they're also advertising hydrogen-powered vehicles. I was wondering what the Chief Minister feels about this new fuel and whether he has instructed his Council of Ministers to bear it in mind and to see if we can add that to the infrastructure of Jersey. Thank you, sir.
Chief Minister.
Thank you, sir. I am interested and supportive of hydrogen. It is definitely a fuel of the future. I know that the Environment Minister and his team are looking at how that can benefit the island. So I very much hope that technology in that area progresses quickly. So we can embrace that over current policies, sir, and the proliferation of electric vehicles that we've seen. And I'm not sure they are the future. As I said before, so our argument is not necessarily with the car, it's with the combustion engine, and anything we can do to improve on that will be welcome. Thank you.
Supplementary?
No, thank you, sir.
Deputy Kovach.
Thank you, sir. Can the Chief Minister provide an update on the work progress regarding the International Cultural Centre?
Chief Minister.
Yes, so that is work currently being led by Deputy Alves, and we are discussing its progress at Council of Ministers. It was on the previous Council of Ministers agenda, and will be coming back, sir, in due course. But I understand work is progressing well, sir, and I very much hope that the International Cultural Centre will progress, sir, and build upon the work that it was started in the previous government. I understand the Assistant Minister is wanting to make some changes to its strategy, sir, and is working on that currently.
Supplementary?
Yes, please. The Chief Minister has responded previously to a few related questions from myself and other members in the Assembly, promising a continuity as now with it a few months ago. Since then, Deputy Alves has been nominated to be in charge of this project, but the work of the steering group has been paused for more than 6 months. If not continuing that work soon, we risk now to lose the important work already done in bringing the communities together for better integration and trust that we have their best interest in mind. Can the Chief Minister confirm that the budget allocated for the ICC in the last government plan is protected for this work, and from when we should expect to see the work of the steering group resuming on this?
Thank you, sir. As I've previously mentioned, I believe, the previous budget of £300,000 was not protected, so we have made some changes to that for 2024. £80,000 of that was allocated to the island identity work led by the Deputy Levy of Grouville and Martin, sir, with the balance going to the ICC. And I know Deputy Ailes has restructured and reworked that budget to put more focus on helping the clients, if you like, of the ICC rather than to the production of events. And I also understand she is planning to hold a steering group meeting in due course, sir, and I apologise. The delay in that was down to internal discussions of what and how the future of the ICC might look, sir, but I'm confident that Deputy Ailes now has that fully in hand. Thank you.
Deputy Reneth.
Thank you, sir. On the subject of public health funding, I hope the Chief Minister will agree that public health work is vital for the prevention of health problems in the context of a long-term health funding crisis. The health budget is protected, but public health falls in the Cabinet Office, which is subject to cuts in its growth bids. Will the Minister therefore commit to ensuring that the public health budget is not subject to cuts?
Chief Minister.
Well, sir, the public health budget will be revisited as other budgets are. And there is likely to be some reduction in the existing budget. But I would point out, sir, that, and I don't have the exact figures in front of me, since COVID, sir, the public health budget has more than doubled. I will double check these figures, but I believe running into COVID, sir, public health had a budget of around £3 million, and it's currently now £7 million. So we've asked officials, as we have in other departments, to make sure they continue to provide a good value for money without impacting upon the service they provide, so the prioritisation of those services, those important public health services, sir. But we also must make sure that our departments are right-sized for the island. And whilst many departments would like to go a lot further and do much more than they do now, sir, we have to bear in mind we have a budget and we have a limit to keep to. Thank you.
Supplementary.
So does the Chief Minister not feel that money saved now in the short-term budget discussion will be money that will have to be spent many times over in the future in paying for healthcare that was not prevented because we did not fund public health appropriately?
I'm not sure I do subscribe to that train of thought. There's one argument that said you could give public health considerably more. You could double or treble their existing budget and they would still find good reasons to use it, sir. But again, public health, with their increased budget since COVID, have and are doing a very, very good job. And I believe we are seeing the benefits of that now in our society, sir. And even if they did have to reduce their budget slightly on what their current budget is this year, I have full confidence they will continue to deliver a very good service for islanders, sir.
Deputy Ayer.
Thank you, sir. The CEO of Ports of Jersey has seen his remuneration increase from $231,000 in 2020 to $453,000 in 2023. Does the Chief Minister believe that it is justified? And will he have a meeting with the Treasury Minister to discuss the possibility of capping the huge bonuses which some CEOs of state-owned entities receive? Thank you, sir.
Chief Minister.
Thank you, sir. Rather than comment on individuals' pay, sir, needless to say so, I do think that we need to be mindful of large pay packages, as mentioned. The Deputy will know, as he sits on the States Employment Board, that I understand this was brought up at a previous meeting, and work is underway to undertake a review of executive pay on the arm's length organisations and state-owned entities, sir, so that work is in progress. Because I think it is a timely reminder that we look to make sure that the executive pay is acceptable, sir, and commensurate with the work and the results that are produced. Thank you.
Supplementary. Deputy Stevenson.
Thank you, sir. Scrutiny recently learned that ministerial plans are being replaced by departmental business plans put together by chief officers who consult with ministers. How will the Chief Minister be ensuring political accountability in this new system and that it's ministers leading the agenda and not the civil service?
Chief Minister.
Well, so I'm pleased to report that we find ourselves, I believe, in having a very productive and strong relationship between the ministerial team and the civil service. All this work is being done collaboratively, has been approved and will be approved by the ministers and council of ministers before these plans are published, sir. I think we've reduced the workload slightly. I think it was surplus to requirements to have departmental plans and ministerial plans. So rather than replace, we're merging the plans, sir. And I expect all ministers and assistant ministers to be fully focused and involved and to continue to work collaboratively with the public sector, sir. And I would reiterate, I've been impressed with the public sector and the chief executive who are being responsive and professional in their approach to the Council of Ministers and determined to deliver the ministerial policies. Thank you.
Supplementary.
Thank you, sir. What guidance or procedure has been put in place around that consultation part with ministers? At what point in the process is it meant to happen? Is every department working to the same process there?
I don't think there is any specific guidance. One would expect senior civil servants and ministers to be able to work those sort of details out in the normal course of their business. And I would expect every minister and every department to have done that in a productive way. And I'm not aware of any incidents where ministers and departments are finding themselves with any juxtapositions on that. So, and if they are, I'd be pleased to learn about it. But I understand things are progressing smoothly. Thank you.
Deputy Gardner.
Thank you, sir. The Chief Minister's answer to my question at the last sitting regarding the view on vocational education funding, I quote, I would need to have a conversation with the Minister for Education, Lifelong Learning, so I can properly articulate my views on that. The Education and Lifelong Minister, in writing to myself about possible options to amendments, confirmed I will accept option 2. This option was rejected several days later by the same minister based on the Council of Ministers decision. Would the Chief Minister advise who are the key people, person, or the Council of Ministers that the members of the Assembly, the backbenchers, will need to confirm on agreed way forward with any of the ministers?
Chief Minister.
I'm not sure I fully understood the question, sir, but the key person, the key decision maker in this is the Minister for Education and Lifelong Learning, sir. So she perhaps needs to seek clarity from him on that, sir. He's leading on it, and he has my support, sir, and the support of Council of Ministers, which we've made clear in our position to oppose the proposition that's currently sitting before this Assembly. Thank you.
Supplementary.
I would be happy to share with the Chief Minister the email where I did have said that the Minister would be happy to support her, and after the email saying that the Council of Ministers decided to reject. So I think that it was some misunderstandings, and we will sort it out in the...
Well, we're now at the 15 minutes barrier, as it were, for questions. That concludes the questions for the Chief Minister. Is the adjournment proposed?
Sir.
Yes, sir.
Members content to adjourn now? Adjourn till 2:15.